Hi, welcome. We're now officially on our monthly voice chat. I hope everybody's on their best behavior.
Nope.
Uh-oh.
Irish, you are allowed to swear if you need to. I
Oh,
won't.
thank fuck. Oh.
Poor Irish.
Oh
I
my
won't be
god.
swearing for the record. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll be swearing enough for everyone,
Yeah.
surely. Get me started.
Irish
I'll
tells
be
me that
fine.
she may have to mute herself while she's
I,
here, so
I
we'll
bang
see.
on.
No,
So
no, no swearing rants, please.
no, no, not even that. I just don't shut up.
See, it's the Irish thing. You guys have the gift of the gab, which is why God gave you all wonderful accents, because then we all want to listen, regardless. Because like when
Is
my when
that
my
it?
when my mother-in-law is talking, like she can ask for a glass of water, and I'm giggling. I'm just like, yes, love
Oh,
that.
that's great.
Which is how people, because I speak in a New Zealand accent at home with my
Hmm.
family, because we're all New Zealanders.
Right.
And when people hear me, sometimes I don't think about it. Like my husband will come up to me at church or something, and I'll switch accents when I'm talking to him because I don't really think about it. And when my
Hmm.
friends haven't heard me talk that way before, they have the same response. They're like, do it again.
Uh-huh.
Talk like that. Which actually I find really irritating. But,
Yeah.
well, only because I grew up going back and forth between America and New Zealand. And when I would
Hmm.
speak in my New Zealand accent in America, nobody was listening to what I said. They were just listening to how I said it.
Oh god,
Um,
yeah.
and it would bother me because then I'd say something serious and then they'd laugh about how I said a word or something.
Yep.
And so I started switching when I came to the States, just immediately switching to my American accent and not using my New
Mm,
Zealand one here at all. Um, and now it's weird because my brain just kind of does it and I don't think about it.
right.
Um, which functionally is good because on the phone the accents can be hard for people.
Right.
Um, But yeah, so I understand, like, I'm sitting here gushing over your accent, and then I'm thinking
Yeah.
I'm being really obnoxious and annoying because I hate it when people do that to
No,
me.
no, I don't mind. I don't.
You
It's but
don't
like you said,
mind.
when you're when you're trying to like it's something that needs to be seriously said and to have, that kind of a conversation as one thing, but just like you said, I get that where they're just staring at you and you can tell they're not listening to anything they're
Yes.
saying. Well, hello.
Yes. I'm
Did
a
you hear
person. I'm
anything
in here.
sad? Yeah.
Intelligent human being.
But other than that, I don't mind. It kind of makes me giggle because I just don't realize it. Like I don't pay any attention to it, so it's odd. But yeah, enough about me. Carry on with the book. Yeah.
Well, what I'm going to do today, I have some stuff that I would like to ask you guys to get some on the spot feedback. Um, but I'm not sure whether to do that at the beginning or the end. Do you guys have a preference?
Mm-mm.
Nope.
Don't
Whatever
everybody
is
jump
best
up at
for you.
once.
Whatever best for you. Whatever you think.
Um,
I don't mind.
maybe what I'll do is I'll do it at the end so that I know that we get through you guys' stuff first, because I don't, that's probably more important because I can ask these questions in text. But I find a lot of times when I put stuff up on the Discord, people either don't, like, I don't phrase it right, so people don't understand what I'm asking. Or I wish I could have follow-up questions, and I can't.
Mm.
So I thought, oh, I'll just talk to him during voice chat this month. So I will set myself a little note to ask you my questions at the end. Um, do you guys have? I have a few questions that I've been given. One is about Prince. The others are all about. Um, I have four questions that are about what's currently going on in King of Beasts. So it depends where you guys are at in the story, whether I'm going to answer those or not, because I don't want to give spoilers to people who aren't currently updated. Um, but
Mm.
the other thing I was going to tell you guys is I'm getting a new cover for Queen, so I'm going to be posting the step by step on that. Um, so
Same
anyway,
artist.
What's that?
It's the same artist or a different artist?
It's the same artist who did Prince, but
Okay.
he is going to do, like, I'm giving him the characters of the current Queen cover as sort of models, but he's going
Mhm.
to change some details for me. The artist that I got the King of Beasts cover from does amazing men, but she does very, very few women. So I had super restricted images to choose from when I was doing Elris's book. And
Wow.
because it's in black and white, it's just not having the impact in features and stuff. It looks
Mhm.
great close up, but when it's in thumbnail, it keeps the detail, which is really good. When I tried to have an artist color the current image, which is what I really wanted to do, it just ended up looking like color blocks. It didn't work at all.
Mhm.
So he's gonna do the scene where Aaron presses Elrith up against a tree.
Oh, I love that scene.
Mm.
Um, and so, but I gave him the current cover as the model, so it won't look exactly the same because it's a different artist. But I'm really happy with the work he did on the
Yeah,
Prince cover. It's really effective.
it looks
Um,
really good. Uh,
well,
love her hair in the cover. It looks
yeah,
amazing. She does a good job.
he does really good. He understands the whole thumbnail thing. He understands what translates in a small image, and he does a really good job with that. I love Luck, who did the other two. I love her. Like, I cannot find anybody whose imagery I love better. Like, I would just stare at her stuff all day. But finding the right image for this book it's just not working. So I'm gonna give it a shot and hope that he can get close enough that it doesn't feel disjointed with King.
Mhm.
Um, but I love going through that process. It's so much fun. I'm always like, ooh, I have an email with images on it. Um, so there will be a new cover coming for Queen, so keep an eye out for those because I'm going to show you guys the step by step that he goes through with that. Um, hopefully there won't be. We had last time with the Prince cover. I had a specific scene in mind for the cover that's actually later in the story that you guys haven't read yet. And I was so excited. I gave him the whole thing, and he did it. He nailed it. And then I showed it to, I think it was the privileged group. I can't remember. I showed it to one group of you guys, and I was like, "What do you guys?" And everybody was like, "They look so sad. They look so angry. Why aren't they happy?" And I was like, "Oh, that's
Aw.
right. You haven't read that scene yet." Um, So
Yeah.
so then I went back to him because I was really happy with it. I only needed like two tiny changes. I was like, "Can we like change their faces a little bit so they look happier?" Honestly, we went back and forth like four times. I felt so bad for him because he
Oh.
had specifically, like I say, he nailed it. He did exactly what I asked him to do. But because he works on a realistic sort of, or mostly realistic bone structure and all of that, when you change from a frown to a smile or from a tension to something that's more relaxed, it changes how the face looks.
Mhm.
And so he tried to just change the mouth like three different times. It looks
Oh
so
boy.
bad. I have one that looks so bad. I'm just like, you know what? That mouth's just not
Crystal.
working. And he's like, I know, I'm sorry. He's like, so we found a happy middle where they look kind of happy, but not super happy, and it works. But I'm
Good.
hoping not to do that with him this time. I'm like, hopefully this time I'm not gonna give you, this tiny detail that we have to do half a dozen times. Um, I got off on that. Sorry. Why don't you guys? I know that Janelle has questions because she already told me she has a list.
I
Um,
do.
Janelle, are your questions about Beast
I have,
specifically?
yeah, I have 2 questions for Beast, and then I have 3 questions for Queen.
Okay. Let's start with Queen. Actually, let me look at what. Yeah, I don't have any for Queen. I'll just tell you guys all really fast in case anybody's listening to this who asked me this question and that's all they want to know. I've had three different people ask me if Forbidden Prince is literally modeled on Romeo and Juliet because I put it in the synopsis, and they're all worried that I'm 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 a freight train on the
Oh.
way to tragedy.
Yeah.
Um, so I just want to reassure anybody who is reading Prince or reads Prince in the future. When I put that tagline at the beginning that says, "Can this Romeo and Juliet find their happy ending?" The answer to that question is yes, but it's going to take a while to get there. So the part of Romeo and Juliet that we're pulling out, or the theme there, is the star-crossed lovers. It's the powerful
Mm,
families that hate each other and will do anything to keep their children apart. Um, so that is the Romeo and Juliet reference. That
mhm.
type of story, the star-crossed lovers, is a literature like staple. But I'm not going for the tragic ending. I say to people, I
Thank
don't know
God.
how many times in the comments I have said to people, in my books, like I was trained in traditional publishing, and you literally can't call a book romance unless it has a happy ending.
Mm,
So for me, it's not romance unless it ends well. So we're
right.
always going to get there in the end. Like, this is what I say to people in the comments all the time. I'm like, it has a happy ending. We're always going to get
Mm.
there in the end, but we will walk through hell to get to it.
The road is
So
stressful as
That
hell.
yeah. And I'll
that just
admit this
hurts.
whole serialization model has really flipped my evil author switch. Like,
Oh,
it's
great.
fun watching people freak out when you put the characters in danger and or their relationship in danger and everybody's like, "No!" And I'm like, "Yes!"
Like,
And I didn't think I was petty that way, but it is fun. I don't write those moments just to make you do that, I promise. But it's a whole
Are you
lot of
sure?
fun when it
I
Are you
happens.
would.
sure? Because it seems like you live on our tears.
You know what? I am. I'm gonna get myself a mug made that just says
Live on
reader tears
it.
on it.
You need to.
Reader
You
tears.
really
It's not your tears. I actually feel bad. People come into the comments sometimes and say that they're crying, and I feel bad because I don't want to make you cry. But I
That
love
just
the
shows good
emotional
writing.
investment. I love when people like
Yes.
feel the story and are in that. I think you did it. Was it yesterday or the day before, Irish, when you were like, "I'm
Yeah.
freaking out," and I said, "Calm your titties." Um, because that just makes that gif makes me laugh, and there's only certain people that I would ever send that to, but I knew that you were one of them. Um, no,
But
I
that
love
just shows
that.
that you are an incredible writer, and to get
Exactly.
people that immersed in it, um, like, that actually feel the emotions going through it. That's something to be said. I mean, it is, and I'm not, kissing arse here, but it's true that I have not had books. I've had books where I'm like, oh God, that really was sweet, and oh no, kind of a thing. But this, I, like I said, I'm not even kidding. I scared the shit out of my dog. He fell off the bed because he screamed so loud. I forget which one it was. And then other times, I literally will tears streaming or
Yes.
anxiety or what, and it's honest to God, I've never read, like, I hate roller coasters, but this is fantastic. Like, I've just gone through such things and I feel like I'm sat right there, with him and such. So
I I
it's
agree
amazing.
100%. Yep.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
It
Thank
is.
you. What I
It
find really, I love that. Thank you. Like I really do, and I know exactly what you mean because that's what my favorite authors do for me as well. Like I
Mm,
feel it, and I'm there, and I get lost in it. So that's really, really flattering when you say that. But I'm gonna tell you, I don't think it's just talent because I've been writing this way for 10 years, and none of my other books have had this impact on people. So I think there's a couple different things that are happening now that haven't happened before. One is the world and the characters. I am writing for myself now. And in the
Mm.
past, even though I've written for myself, like the premises have been mine, the characters have been mine, the stories have been mine. When you get heavily edited, your writing improves dramatically. But there is other minds and hearts coming into it, which I think is good, and I've always encouraged. I love my books always get better when they get edited. So I'm always like, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me.
Well,
Um,
I've cried with every single one of your books so far that's on web
Yeah.
novel.
that's awesome. I mean,
Mhm.
not, I don't, I'm
No,
not
but it
sitting here going,
is.
how can I make them cry? I just mean it's awesome that
It's a
you're
good thing. Yeah.
The,
invested.
the CEO book, I just sobbed with different parts, and then
Mm.
Oh
with
my
King of
gosh.
Beasts, I've been sobbing. I've been sobbing with all of your books, really, especially
I'm gonna.
lately with Prince.
Yeah. Oh God, I can't. Oh my God. All right,
You
that
wait,
in
if you've
itself.
cried already with Prince,
No, see,
man,
that's
you're
just
gonna
it.
be a
Yeah.
basket case
I
in a few
Oh
weeks.
no.
every time
No.
I think about it, my stomach flops. And if I
I
see that
know.
red little dot, I pick up the phone and then I go, I can't do
I
it.
know.
I
I
can't.
do the
Then I
same
pick it
thing.
up and I go, oh no, I can't. Oh God, I have to like prepare myself.
Yeah.
Honest to God,
When I
I
see a
hate to
new one
admit it.
for Prince, I'm just yeah. When I
I
see a new one for Prince, I just want to die
I
because I'm like, oh my god, am I gonna cry again?
I know. I have such but it's good, but I have such like I will stare at the phone for a minute. Like the other books, I'm like, click on it quick. That one
Yeah,
I had
it's a pause.
my palms
Yes.
started getting sweaty.
See, now I can't
Yeah.
And I'm
decide
like,
if
oh
this is
God,
a
is
good
this
thing
gonna
or
be it?
not. I'm
I'm
gonna
like,
get
is
I'm
this
gonna get
gonna
my
be it?
editor coming to me and being like, "Well, we have some statistical anomalies with Prince. Everybody seems to wait a while before they open it up when you've updated, and we're not quite sure why." And I'll be like,
I
"It's
was so
because the
scared.
mother is a real cow." No.
Oh, I'm it's like waiting for the ball strut kind of thing. I start to read, I'm like, oh God, I get okay,
Is
tissues,
this only
light.
since they got Oh wait. Do we
Yeah.
do we have
Wait.
we have readers here who have not read Prince, is that right? I think.
I've
Has
read Prince.
anybody not read Prince? Poor Citrus. Citrus, I know that you're not caught up on this stuff, but I'm just gonna I'm
I'm totally fine with y'all sharing. I'm just here for the camaraderie and the fun times. So y'all share. I'm here for the fun times.
poor Citrus.
Good lord.
Okay, so is that experience that you're having with Prince, is that only since they got married, or was it before that?
Since no, it was
Since
since
no,
they
it's
got married, right?
yeah,
For me.
it's the evil queen for me. She's just so
Yeah.
Mm.
I just like the whole thing. I'll kill her if you don't. I'm like,
yes,
what the fuck is
yes.
wrong with you? Oh God.
I will
Right.
lead the charge. I need her
Oh
gone.
God, and then he's talking to oh Christ, what's his
Borscht?
name? Yes, thank you. And he's telling him, and Boris had the same reaction I did. Are you out
Yeah,
of your mind? What?
yeah.
Well,
I was
remember,
How the
agreeing.
Borscht
hell
wasn't
is?
there though. Borscht didn't hear everything that went down. Like, I'm
No, yeah.
100% on Eaton's side with this. Like, he
Oh
could
God, yeah,
not win. There was no
yeah,
winning
yeah,
that whole scenario from his
yeah.
perspective. Like, he's doing the best thing in his from
Yep.
his position to
I keep
do.
saying, I'm like, he's doing the best. But oh my God.
Man,
It's all from
my
love.
Yeah.
my yeah, my problem though is that he's not letting anybody else in for another perspective.
Yes,
Right,
and that is one
right.
of Eaton's weaknesses. He is far more trusting of himself than anybody else, and so he doesn't
Mhm.
always get a balancing. He's pretty
Right.
good about talking to Borge about stuff, but
Mhm.
Right, but
as
he
you've
wasn't
probably
listening.
seen, no, yeah. Well, he's in panic though, too. Like, because he
I
thought he
wanted to
had a
smack him.
plan, he thought they had it figured out. Like
Right.
he was walking in there ready to face down the dragon, and never
Hmm.
imagined that she could come up with what she came up with. So like he's
No.
completely blown sideways by that entire conversation.
Hmm.
Nothing has happened the way he thought it would. And
Yeah.
now he
Right.
has the dual sort of, he's doing the right thing and he believes in what he's doing, but he also is terrified to face Aelith with it
Mm.
because he knows how he's going to feel, let alone how she's going to feel, and he's carrying both of those things. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Because from his
Yep.
perspective, he can't not do it. But at the same
Right.
time, he knows how that's going to affect her. So he's carrying that. Like
And
he's
I get,
carrying that responsibility.
yeah, I get that he
Hey,
can't tell her because it would be very hard. Like I tried to think myself, it would be very hard for me to pretend.
Yeah.
Do you know?
And
I
she's
could
good at
especially
stop
when your
the eye
mom's so
contact.
evil.
Yeah,
well, she
but
doesn't know how evil her mother is
yeah,
the other thing. She's going to learn that in the course of the book,
Yeah.
but right
mm,
now he knows quite rightly that
mm,
Aelith's response to that would be to try to fix it.
yeah,
And all she's going to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
by
that's true.
doing that is put herself in danger.
right.
So
Yeah. No.
I'm with, well, I agree with you guys that he should have listened to Borsch more. Like there's options he could have explored or
Mm,
ways that he could go that he's not even considering right now.
yeah,
But at the same time, I understand why. Like I understand why he's willing to take the risks he's taking and that he truly intends and believes that he will work this out. Like he really
right.
thinks he's going to fix this. Um, and ironically, it's because he needs somebody else involved that there's going to be this, anyway, I don't
No,
want
no,
to,
carry
Anyway,
on.
yeah, like, why don't I just tell you the story? No, it was really funny this morning. My husband and I were talking about the different books. I can't even remember how it came up. He's like, "Remind me what the premise is for Prince." And I
Mm.
was like, and I started talking about it. Like I didn't even think about it. I just kind of started talking, and I can tell he's sitting there. His eyes are starting to glaze over, and I'm like, um, well, really, it's just two, young rulers whose parents hate each other. I was like, really,
Right.
that's what it is. Dial it back, Amy.
Yeah.
Reel it back in.
I
Because,
kind of wish he would have told Phallic, to be honest. But I get too why he didn't,
yeah,
like, because that was Borscht was saying, oh, we have to at least tell Phallic or he'll kill you.
yeah.
Thinking that you betrayed. And that was my one thing. I was like, oh, God, please just tell him.
That
Or
is the
someone dying.
one, yeah. That's the if I as a person was talking to Eaton, that's the aspect that I would talk to him about as
Mm,
well. But at the same time, I know his motives are good. Like he
right.
is concerned that if it's Philippe and I
Philippe.
spell yeah, it's
Oh,
Philippe
sorry.
and no, this is the way you pronounce it is the way everybody pronounces it because I didn't even think about how he was spelling it. It absolutely makes sense that people would think it was phallic, but because
Oh.
that is also, synonymous with penis, that was not what I meant at all. And the
Right.
first time a reader
Right.
said that to me, why did you call him phallic? I was like, I didn't. I called him Philippe.
Yeah.
It was like it reminds
Aha.
me.
Well,
I
now
don't know
you
if
know.
any of you
Good.
have watched the Zoolander movie, but
Uh-huh.
the where he keeps mispronouncing words,
Mm-hmm.
like derelict. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
it reminded me of that. Anyway, so I call him Philippe. You guys are absolutely allowed to call him phallic if it doesn't mess with your head. But just so you know, in my head, he's Philippe. Anyway,
I try to.
it's hard to switch. I had to do that with a couple different books that I've read where I learned halfway through the book that the name was pronounced differently than I'd been reading it, and it's really hard. Anyway,
Yeah.
with Eaton and Philippe, what he's worried about is that Philippe has already technically traitored himself to the
Yeah.
king, but his um, allegiance to Aelith obviously is undisturbed.
Mm-hmm.
He's concerned that if anybody gets even the slightest hint that Philippe is on board with what's going on,
Oh,
that
yeah.
he'll just be removed. And not only will that be Philippe losing his own life, it'll be him no longer there to protect Aelith, and
Right.
Eaton
Oh.
needs him there to protect Aelith.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
I totally understand why he's doing what he's doing,
Yeah.
but he is completely underestimating the risk. When Borsch
Yeah.
said to him,
Yeah.
"Do not underestimate this man," he meant
Mm.
it. Like Borsch is like this guy, like Borsch sees Philippe as like, this is a guy that can eyeball me, and Borsch is not used
Mm.
to meeting that. He's not used to meeting somebody that he has to think carefully about
Right.
how he would take them, because in most people they're not as skilled as he is, or they're not as just not as intelligent. Like he would be
Mm-hmm.
able to remove them from the problem. But with Philippe, he's found his match, kind of. Um, and Borsch thinks he can take him, but he also
Okay.
thinks there's a risk that he won't, and
Mm.
he does not believe that Eaton can take him. He's not saying that outright, but in Borsch's
Yeah.
mind, you will not take this guy if he comes at you. Like you will
Well,
lose.
that's what I'm afraid of. That's
Mm.
the first
Yeah.
thing I thought is, oh Christ, he's gonna kill him. He's gonna kill him.
It's a genuine risk. It's a genuine risk. Like
Hmm.
skill wise, Philippe is stronger and more. If Eaton was the same age as Philippe is now,
Hmm.
not so much, but because Eden's younger and less experienced, Philippe would take him if they went
Hmm.
head to head right now. So yeah,
And
it's a
I'm
risk.
worried about that.
Mm.
I
So is
know.
Borsch.
Yeah.
Eaton's like, I'll see him coming, and Borsch is like, no, you don't
No, you
understand. You
won't.
won't.
No, you really won't.
None of
He's
us
so
I
will.
just
That's the
sneaky.
hate.
problem.
I just hate
Good
that. Like,
lord.
I get so involved. Like, I hate that Fleeky's gonna think that he was a bad guy, that everything was
Mm.
a lie, that all. I mean, that's what breaks my heart. Not the. I mean, I'm worried about him breaking his neck, but breaks my heart that he's gonna now think this guy was everything that he thought he was at first, kind of a
Mm.
thing. I thought, oh God, that's gonna break
Yeah.
my heart.
Mm.
Those are my stresses too. I'm freaking out that everyone's gonna turn on him
Yeah,
Oh, they
and that
are.
nothing's gonna happen. No, but like nothing good will happen out of it.
I know.
Well,
I'm
did
freaking out, Amy.
don't. So I'll go back to the original point of raising this. Um, it may be a hellish journey,
Right,
but we will
right,
get to a happy ending. So
right.
hold on to that. But at the same time,
Ugh.
allow yourself to go for the journey. The journey will be very up and down. I
Yeah.
hope, I hope there will also be some really cool surprises for you in that.
Oh, I'm sure
Um,
there will. Knowing
but
you.
yeah, it's I was telling my husband this, he's like, because ironically, Prince is growing this month and Queen isn't. And that just
Mm,
happens sometimes with the way the cycles work on recommendations. Like web novels, marketing thing, you hit cycles of stuff, and Queen's on
mhm,
a downward cycle and Prince is on an upward cycle. I have no idea why because I didn't update it for 6 weeks, and yet
mhm,
apparently, even before I updated it, they had scheduled something for it in September. I don't know what, but its numbers jumped the minute the month
mm.
reset. So,
Hmm.
and I was like, great, if you had told me you were going to do that, I might have put a little bit more investment in this book last month. Um, so it's behind. It's not, I'm not trying to say that it's like it still earns less, a lot less than Queen does, but
Mm,
in terms of where they're at, Prince is growing this month. And so hence I'm going to try and keep it updating somewhat regularly. But
yay.
it's just funny because I haven't been giving any real attention to that book, not because I don't want to. I said to my husband today, I was like, I think these are literally the best characters I've ever written. Like these are my
Mhm,
favorites, for in terms of like just story wise. And he's like,
mhm.
really? Because of course he's hearing me go, it's not doing anything. Um,
Yeah.
but it's just weird. This is what I actually meant to say when you were being so nice. Part of a successful book is not just whether or not you can write. There's a lot of people out there that can write far better than me, and I can write far better than some other people. But it's how the story and the characters connect, and some of that has to do with um, just the I don't want to say trends because it's not that people go looking for trends. It's that it's just human nature that you see a lot of something, you like it, you devour a lot of it, you start to get an appetite for something else. And so there's
Mhm,
cycles of stuff. And without any knowledge of that, I just happened to start Beast as this cycle of the sort of shapeshifter werewolf animalistic s- trend was coming in. And I didn't know that that was going to happen, and I'm very thankful to God that it did.
Mhm.
But ironically, Prince was based on advice from my editor, based on what had been selling really well in the previous months. So we started planning Prince back in January. It didn't get released till the 1st of April. And we just happened to hit a downward cycle
Mhm.
on that story. And so it's not that my talent is any different. It's that readers aren't connecting with it as much as they're
Mhm.
connecting with the Beast stories. And pretty soon people will get sick of the Beast stuff and they'll be looking for something else. Um, so, I love that you guys are so invested. It's what I've always wanted to have happen, with my stories, because I'm always that invested in my characters. And
Mhm.
I've never had, a decent chunk of other readers who felt the same way until now. So it's a fun and exciting experience. But um, there are some incredible writers out there who have never had this, and I hate it for them because it's what
Mhm.
we all want. Not every writer wants to sit in a room and talk to people because some of them have real social anxiety, but
Mhm.
every writer wants people to be invested in their stories and in their characters and want to follow them emotionally. So,
Right.
anyway, um, so if you're reading Prince, or for that matter, any of my other books, please don't be concerned that we're going to get to the end and kill people or whatever. Um, as you know, if you've read Beast, I do kill people, but um, but you're not gonna lose your favorites. They're gonna
Right.
they're gonna make it in the end.
Phew.
But just, still go for the ride. I'm always a
Oh
little bit
God, yeah.
hesitant to get too into that because I'm like, no, 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 I still want you to feel tense.
Oh, but believe me, still will.
Janelle, why don't you tell me what your questions were for Queen?
Okay, hold on. I had to answer the door.
Oh, do you want?
I'm going to be honest. I have not now. I've gone through and I've bought, the privilege, and I've gone through as it's going. I have not read it
Oh no, that
because I, I'm 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 afraid that I'm gonna find things out from Beast. I just have this weird thing, and not to say it will, but like I obviously already know that she's born.
yeah, I was gonna
But
say.
it's kind of, yeah. But like I
Kind of a
did,
spoiler.
yeah, I didn't want to continue reading it in case I found something else, or led to something else that Beast had. I just thought I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna read through Beast, but I'm gonna go through and make sure I'm updated
You're so sweet.
for Queen. I was like, no, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna update it, but I'm just not gonna read it. So that's, you're probably like, why the hell is she not yapping on in comments there? But it's only because I was like, I'm just gonna do one at a time because I know
You're
me.
so
I'm
cool.
gonna read into too much and I'm gonna guess too much. I'm gonna drive myself insane.
Well, you
So,
weren't here because we talked about this
mhm,
when the book first came out. Because there's a lot of readers that are worried about that are worried
mhm,
about spoilers. Um,
It's
And
not that
I'm not going
bad.
to say there's no spoilers. I mean, obviously, and I said it right from the beginning. Clearly, Elrith has her own book.
right,
Clearly, Elrith is born. That's a
yeah,
spoiler. But at the same time, what I've tried to do with the plotting, they have um, what we call antagonistic forces in the
mhm,
two books. There's an intertwining between them, but they're not the same thing, and or at least they're connected, but they're not presenting the same.
okay,
And because it's 20 years in the future,
mhm,
you've got different characters, different side characters, and slightly different society, and things have evolved a little bit.
mhm,
But on top of that, what I've tried to do is where there is a connection between the two stories. When you see it in Beast, you're getting one side of it. And if you didn't read Queen, you would think you were getting the only side of it. But if
Oh,
you
that's
read
right.
Queen but hadn't read Beast, you're getting a different side of it.
Oh,
And
right.
if you but what's been really cool, and it hasn't even been intentional, but it's just the pacing of the stories. What's happening
Yeah.
now in both stories is
It's like a
connected but not the same. And so people are reading both at the same time and they're understanding the both books better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
it's not that it spoils it for you, it's that they kind of inform each other.
there's a
So
parallel to it.
yeah. So the idea,
Okay.
and I don't know if I'm going to be able to nail it. The goal for these books is that you could read either one first,
Mm-hmm.
and all that's going to happen when you read the other is you're going to understand it better. You're not going to have oh, well, I know what's going to happen with this one
Okay.
because of the story. And because of some of the plot vehicles that I'm using, there's certain things that aren't being said and certain things that aren't being addressed in Queen intentionally to
Okay.
provide for that. So anyway,
Yay.
what I'm saying is you should be able to read both at the same time without having
Okay.
actual spoilers, but at the same time, there's going to be little things like
Mm-hmm.
it's unavoidable. A
Sure.
character is still alive,
Right.
that kind
Right.
of thing. But yeah, I'm trying to write them in a way that they don't spoil each other. And so far, I think I've been able to do that. Um,
Well,
if
then I'm
if I
jumping
ever
right in
get to
there.
a point where I have to reveal something in
Mm-hmm.
Queen that's going to show something up in King before it's finished, I will warn readers in it
Mm-hmm.
and I'll say, stop here and don't come back until you've finished King.
Right.
Um,
Okay. Well, good.
but
I'm glad I brought it up because then I'm going to start reading that now.
well,
You'll
you don't
enjoy it.
have to is the other
More
thing.
tears.
Yeah,
More tears. More anxiety.
I'll have to get a bigger mug.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
you're
I just
fine.
that
We
made me
actually
think. Like,
we re- we I didn't think about it. There were a totally different group of people here, 3 months ago or whatever it was when we went over that. So anyway, Janelle, did you have your questions for Queen?
Yeah. My first question is, will Aaron get his cohorts in a feast?
Ooh. So yes and no. Aaron's position is entirely unique to the entire society. Nobody's ever had the position that he holds before. Because normally, if you are king, you are king. And he is what's technically called a king regent, I think, which again is also not normal. Normally, it would be a prince regent. Um, but Elrith is like, no, he's king. So they're having to figure out, or they will have to figure out, how they are going to sort of define his power because it has to be fit into the hierarchy. And because no one's
Okay.
ever had the position he has before, there's no sort of standard in the hierarchy for it. Um, so yes, he will eventually, but it's not going to look the same because but right now, if you're reading it, you'll know there's so much going on
Right.
that that sort of thing is kind of falling to the side. Normally, had they come back from their smoke and flames, um, this would have been pretty upfront. They would have been figuring out because normally this would be exactly the kind of issue that the elders would bring. Hey, we need to make sure everybody understands where he stands, where his power is, how it relates to yours, how it relates to the alphas in the tribes. Normally that would have been kind of like a first order of business. But because of
mhm.
what has happened, it's taking precedence over that. It's kind of been pushed to the back, and that's going to cause some issues for them. And so they are going to have to figure it out. So yes and no.
Okay.
He will be appointing some people, but until everybody else figures out where he stands, nothing's going to happen on that front.
Yeah, I figured because of all the things that was going on that this was pushed back, and so I was just wondering if it was pushed back forever or not. So thank you.
No problem. Did you have
My
another one?
Yeah, I have three actually for Queen of Beasts. My second question is related to Tarkin, and his always looking at Elrith and kind of, in my opinion, challenging Aaron. Is that going to be something that is going to be pursued, or is he just going to eventually give up and let them be?
So you were actually really insightful about that.
Hmm.
Tarkin, in the comments, I think it was you. I think it was you that I said that you were reading the situation well. Maybe it was during the Smoke and Flames. I can't remember. A couple different people have kind of
Well,
nailed this down, and I'm not sure everybody else has got it. Tarkin is fully understanding that Aaron is her true mate, and that is unchangeable. So he's not in a position where he's like, maybe I can sidle in here. But he is somebody who A has always cared about her and the royal family in general. And because of his position in the tribe as the captain and her captain specifically, his primary role is to protect and equip, right? So his job is to make sure that everybody who needs to know how to take care of something can do it. He trains people, or positions guards and protection and all of that kind of thing. And then also he is just a protective guy in general. That's why he's good at what he does, because that's kind of how he functions. So I think it was you. Somebody
yeah,
read
it
it
was.
really well and said it feels like what he's doing is basically challenging Aaron to show, basically to test Aaron's mettle,
Yeah,
to get him to step up and be what he needs to be. And that's exactly what Tarkin is doing. Tarkin's feelings for Elwith are real, but he is in no like confusion as to the fact that it's up to him to get over that, because that's not going to change. But what he's doing is he's pushing Aaron and not letting Aaron. Uh, I don't want to say float. I think Tarkin understands probably even better than the readers do that one of Aaron's difficulties is self doubt, and
right.
that holds him back. And if, in Tarkin's mind, if he's going to hold this position that has such power, even if he's submitted to Elrith, Aaron has to be very, very strong. And self doubt cannot come into how he functions in the tribe. So what he's basically doing is pushing his buttons on purpose to get him to step
Gotcha.
out of that retreat, or that, because I don't know if you guys know, I feel it, but I don't know if it comes through on the page. Aaron positions himself behind Elrith all the time. And he does that subconsciously. And it's because in his mind, she is more important than him. And so it's his position to basically to back her up. And he's very confident to do that. He knows that he's strong, and he knows that he's dominant, and he can take care of it if she needs help. But by the same token, where attention is focused on him outside of the disformed, he can get very shaky about whether he should be dominant, and whether his judgment is correct, and all of that kind of stuff. So he gets insecure, or kind of in his own head, and he doesn't always address things the way he should when he's in that mental space. And Tarkin can see that in him, and is basically challenging him to force him to address some stuff in a way that he should be addressing it, and he's not. And it will be a lot of fun when Aaron does. I'm looking forward
Well,
to that day.
isn't he kind of already stepping up privately for that
Yes.
lately?
So this is the thing about Aaron. Aaron has everything he needs. Aaron is strong enough, he is dominant enough, and he is equipped to do what he's doing. His only obstacle is himself, really, in the end. And Tarkin knows that, and Elrith knows that, and a lot of Reth knows it too. Like a lot of people that are close to him or have spent a lot of time around him, they can see it in him, but he doesn't see it in himself. So he swings between this sort of when he's just with the disformed, he loses all of that and he just is doing his thing. He's strong, he's confident, he knows what he wants, he's not scared to confront people, like he's off doing what needs to be done. It's when he gets into the more general around the elders and stuff like that. Sometimes he gets in his own head, and because he expects people to either question him or doubt him or put him down because he's disformed, or not expects people to think lower of him, sometimes he puts himself in that position without anybody else having to do it. He just stays quiet when he shouldn't or doesn't stand up when he should. But not all the time. Sometimes he is confident and he does stand up and say what he should. It just depends on the situation and what mood he's in and what different things are going on. So he's just growing. He's a young guy. He's like 24.
Oh,
Which in
okay.
anima, to be fair, they mature faster. So like Reth at 30 is like I would say the equivalent of a human male at like 40. Aaron at 24, it would be in his early 30s in terms of his development. Like he's not a young guy who's like irresponsible or anything like that. He went through all of that when he was a teenager. Now he's strong. He's an adult, but he's still working through his own position in the tribe and how he should think about himself. And so different things can make him shaky. And then other times he's just like, I'm going to deal with this. But privately with Elrith, you don't get to he doesn't do that a lot because she's always believed in him and he knows it. And so he chooses to submit. But as you've seen in private, he's like, wait. Because he knows he's not going to lose her for that. He knows that that's actually going to work well with them together. It's when he
Hmm.
gets around other people that he's not really sure how what they're going to think or how they're going to feel. And so he starts to lose his confidence sometimes.
And he'll eventually get it though.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're already seeing him at different times stand up and say what needs to be said or do what needs to be done. That's why Tarkin's pushing him because in Tarkin's mind, you need to do that all the time. Like nobody should be questioning you the way they're questioning you. You shouldn't be letting them question you. And the point that Tarkin's trying to make silently is that Aaron should not in any way entertain any male having any kind of advance on Elrith. Like he should have shut that down the second he saw it. He should have shut that down. He didn't do it with Dargan early enough, and he hasn't done it enough. He's done it, but he's not done it enough with Tarkin. So Tarkin's like pushing that button intentionally to kind of bring this out so that Aaron will start taking control around Elrith because what Aaron hasn't understood yet is yes, he's submissive to Elrith in the sense of her word goes. She's the queen, she's the dominant, she's the alpha. So if she makes a decision, he's there to back her up and that he's right to think that way. But the other part of his role would be to kind of clear the way, so to speak, for Elrith not to have to deal with certain things, right? So that she can focus on the stuff that's important. And one of the things that she should not be having to deal with is she should not be having to dominate males to stop them advancing on her. Erin should be taking care of that so she can just do her job and and
Right.
and handle stuff. And that would be true in any relationship, actually. And you saw it with Reth and Elia when early on, Reth shut down Gari when he thought Gari was touching her and he shouldn't. And then she turned around and flipped on him and shut down another lioness when Reth was talking and the girl flirted in front of her. Um, she did that instinctively, and Reth was like, "Yeah," because that is the way it's supposed to be. The idea is that each person should um, defend and protect the other. So you don't have to defend and protect yourself. Your relationship should be equally protected by both parties. So Aaron should be stopping any male that's trying to make any kind of advance on Elrith, and Elrith should be stopping any female that tries to make any kind of advance on Aaron.
Right.
Does that answer your question
Yes,
in
very
a
much
very
so. Thank
lengthy
you.
way? Did you have another one about Queen?
Yeah, it's just more or less a yes or no question. It's will Tarkin ever get a mate?
So, yes. Um, one of the things that I'm going to talk to you guys about is what upcoming projects I have options to do and whether, yeah, we'll talk about that more later.
Okay,
But
fair
yes,
enough.
in the lore, in terms of the story in my head, yes, he will.
Okay,
Whether
because I
you
was just
ever see it
thinking,
or not, he will.
yeah, okay, because in my head I was thinking if he gets a mate, then maybe he'll cool it with Aaron. But your explanation was great. So
You're going to
and
see him and Aaron are actually over time going to become very strong allies. But right
I can,
now, they're in a place of conflict that Tarkin
yeah,
is coming at from a much more mature perspective. So
yeah, I could
Aaron's
see that.
reading it differently than it actually is.
Right. Okay. Awesome.
Cool. Um, so I had been given some questions about the end of well, not the end of Beast, but the current events that you guys are reading in the last few days in Beast. If there's anybody who hasn't read, I'm going to say the last like 10 chapters of Beast, if you're not in the top level of privilege and or you haven't read the last sort of 10 or 12 chapters, you might want to mute for a while. I'm going to kind of talk about this and kind of not because I'm getting a lot of questions about it. And I'm not sure if that's because I just haven't written it correctly or if it's because we just haven't got far enough in yet. But there was some stuff that people have been asking me that I feel like I can answer. So I'm going to, but it's a little bit spoilery. So if you haven't read those chapters. So the first question I got, and I got it again like 2 or 3 different times, variations of it. But basically, it came down to don't the voices always lie? Why would Gari listen to them at all? Um, and so, what I want to say to that is the voices are deceptive, definitely, but keep in mind that they are working on a supernatural level and they know a lot of stuff, and not all of that stuff is false. So, the example would be Gari coming through the first time and being shown Callie and being shown a legitimate experience that he had with her later. So they know some stuff, but not everything that they know is right, and not everything that they say or show is true. So it's about how much do you believe, right? Which is what Shaw was always talking about when he was talking about needing to know what experiences people had, what predictions they'd been given. It was because part of his research was to try to identify how and when the voices are lying and how and when they're telling the truth so that he could start um, telling the difference when he heard them. Um, so, no, the voices don't lie about everything, but what they do is they're deceptive with the way that they use truth. So, for example, when Gari came through the first time, he was shown Callie and told that she was his mate and told that he couldn't have her unless he went with the voices. There's some truth to that, but not all. She is his actual mate. But whether they believed it or just simply told him is unclear at this point. But they said that he could not have her, and the implication was that he would never make that true mate's connection with her unless he followed them. And that's clearly not true because he did.
Mm.
But at the same time, and this is where his journey's been really difficult. As he's coming back through now, they're saying, well, see, we told you you're going to go down and she can't come with you. See, we told you you couldn't have her without us. Now, whether that was what they meant at the beginning or not, that's how they're putting it now. And he understands that they showed him this much before and it turned out to be true. Now he has to worry about what they're showing him, whether or not that's true as well. So I would
Cool.
say trust nothing that they say, but also don't dismiss anything that they say
Okay.
because they use truth in a deceptive way. They manipulate. And some of what they say is just true. It's just a fact. But other stuff is up in the air and they present it as if it can't be changed, and that's not true. So there's no hard and fast answer with them. That's why it's so hard to deal with them. And that's why Gary got so oh wait, you haven't read that yet. Never mind.
Oh no, go ahead. No, don't.
I think you're gonna be reading it. Let me check. I think you're gonna be
Where
reading it
are
like
we?
really soon.
We're where they go through.
So you
The
just
last
yes,
The
but I
last
need
was
to see because I think yeah,
the
you're
last
gonna go to Reth tonight. You're not gonna see them go through
So they're in
for
most
I'm
places
sorry.
great.
that's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
I
Evil
think.
author. Evil author laugh. I'm just
No,
gonna
I was
see.
dying when it was Ref and Laren, and all of a sudden there's Gary at the front. I'm like, but
every switch is like, what?
I
I
know.
know. I'm sorry.
I love it though. I
I
love it though.
can't.
I do.
Well, the whole idea, what I hope you're experiencing with that is that you go, "Oh man," but then you get so hooked into what's going on with the next ones that you forget. And then
Yeah.
when you get to come
Exactly.
back to the first one, you're like, "Oh, that's right. We get to, you know."
Yes, it's like two
Yeah,
different
no, that's
stories within. Like you're like, ooh,
Mhm. That's the
read that one.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm sorry. You're actually not gonna see Gari and Elia for a little while. I didn't realize. I didn't realize I left
That's
that
okay
page.
because I want to know about Sully and now how do you say her name?
You said it right.
Thule.
That Sully. Okay, I was like, I probably mucked that one up too. Um, but Sully and Lauren, and I'd really
Laren
like to
and
slap
Suli.
the Jesus out of Lauren, really, but it's
Man,
okay because
I'm so mad at Laren right
I'm
now.
I get it. I
Mhm.
do. My head gets it, my
Yeah.
heart and my Irish doesn't, and I want to beat the piss out of
My
him. But
Irish. My Irish doesn't get it.
it doesn't. I just
I
want to be
love that.
so mad. Ugh, I just want to kick him in
Oh,
his teeth, but then I go,
you're
no,
not the
no,
only
I get
one.
it. Good. I'm glad I'm not, because sometimes I
No, you're really
feel like,
not. Everybody
oh,
is trying to throttle Laren in the comments, except like one reader who's like, I totally get it. I'm like,
I mean, I
ooh,
get it,
you're
but
cold.
God, I still want to kick him
Yeah.
in his teeth.
Yeah.
I get that she lied with omission, and that's wrong.
Sure,
But I'm
but to
really mad at
deny
the way he
her,
treated her. Yeah, I
Mhm.
know,
deny
right?
her, that was like the worst thing he could have. Okay, call her a liar, call her deceptive, call her whatever. But when you're gonna deny her, that's like what the
Keep
And
in
then,
hell?
mind, I just wanna say in Laren's defense, because I agree he's going too far, but what I want to say is what you're seeing is the um development, so to speak, of the issues that he's had before all this. All the stuff
Right.
that dragged him into the hate and anger in the first place, right? He was
Hmm.
the more balanced wolf. He should have been the true leader because he had the ability to look at things more objectively than his father did. And once his
Right.
father got messed up, his father was taking things in a dark direction. And the reason those things got hidden from Laren was because they knew he was the
Yeah.
good guy, right? So
Right.
he has had the people in the wolf tribe and the lupines, the family unit is like the core of their life, right? Even if those people piss you off, even if they hurt you, those are the people that you defend to the death. And there's a wider feeling of that in the tribe as a whole against the other tribes, right? So you have
Mhm.
your family group is like your core and you do everything for those people. And then the wider tribe is your larger family as opposed to the rest of the anima. So the
Right.
lupines have even more strongly than the other tribes, the lupines have a very, very family first thing. And Laren has just gone through finding out that the people that he has, basically discarded his own moral code for, being his
Mhm.
father and his sister, that they deceived him and hid things from him intentionally because they knew that he would resist them.
Right.
And so he had to deal with, at first, the way he dealt with that was to kind of go into denial about it and target his anger at Reth. And then once he realized, no, like this is really ugly, and this whole thing is just a complete just crap fest,
Mm.
and he is at fault for not having seen it sooner. And the reason he didn't see it sooner was because he was blinded by his loyalty to his family. So
Right.
Sully's the one who actually showed him that, right? She's the one who opened his eyes to that, and he transferred that loyalty from them to her. So he
Yeah.
went, this is the wolf I can trust. This is the one, she's my true mate. She's wise, she's thoughtful, and she's showing me the truth even when it's hard. She's not scared to show me, like, that's the female that I want to be with for the rest of my life, right? So he went all in
Yeah.
emotionally. And which is why, I don't know if you guys remember, but Sully had a conversation with him when she showed him the Asta thing in
Yeah.
the and she was like, "Wait, you wouldn't even like wait to find out if she's like
Mhm.
working with you or trying to help you, because I think she is, because she talks about this a lot." And he's like, "I don't care." He's like,
Right.
"She should not have not told me." Like, and he's right about that. Asta shouldn't have not told him.
Yeah.
Asta was
Agreed.
wrong to do what she was doing. And the reason she was wrong was because she had a foot in both camps. She never really, you know, picked a
Yeah.
side. So he was actually right about Asta. But what's happened is now he thinks Sully's the next Asta, right? He's looking at this and going, I trusted her. I thought, and he, in his mind, he not only trusted her like himself, like emotionally, he trusted her with what he was going to do. And
Mhm.
do you know what I mean? Like he put the
Yeah.
entire tribe in her hands.
Right.
And then she turns around and turns out to be lying. And to him, it's just the fulfillment basically of his, overarching resentment and fear for his whole life. He's
Mm.
basically every rug that he steps on thinking that this is going to be the one that's strong keeps getting pulled out from under him. So she's
Right.
actually paying the price for everybody who's
Right.
ever
That's
deceived
kind of
him.
how I. That's what I kind of was thinking. Like, oh my god, this girl's getting the brunt of kind of everything
Yeah.
that's happened to him.
And if it was a more normal situation where it was just like day-to-day functioning, there would be more chance for him to kind of cool off and look at
Yeah.
it a little bit more clearly. But he's been pushed into such a corner. In fact, he's chosen to be pushed into that corner. And I love how Reth handled him in that
Yeah.
at the hallowed grounds and stuff.
Mhm.
Um,
Me too.
but yeah, so basically,
God.
in Laren's defense, even though from the outside looking in, I wouldn't take the action that he's taking, I totally get that basically what's happened is he's so scared to trust anybody now
Yeah.
that he's just not gonna he's not even gonna trust her. He's just
Mhm.
shutting down completely because he
That's
just
my worry. Like, how's he ever gonna? Like, that's my thing. Oh my god, how is he gonna come back from that? I mean, could she show him memories and whatnot? But like you said, it's his whole past.
mhm.
He's blaming her for everything. How the hell is she gonna make up for that? Like, that's what's so interesting to me. Like, I just can't wait to see how they develop and if he is able to. God, that's a lot to let go of.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah.
to let
That's
go
Well,
of.
how
his
does he
that's
even
his
approach
demons.
that?
Yeah.
Well, how is he even going to approach that if he's having such anger issues and putting all of his hurt on her?
Right.
Well, it's I got to be really careful here because I don't want to spoil the story.
Yeah.
Um, so the thing is, he's already done it once, right? And so he's going to
Mm.
learn from that. At some
Yeah,
point,
but
at
she's.
some point, at some point,
Ugh.
he is going to see that he has been through this. Oh, sorry. He has been through this before, where he had to look and realize that what he thought was true is not true, and
Mhm.
he was wrong, and he
Well, he
has
had
to eat humble pie, and he has to correct and move in the right direction where he's been going in the wrong direction before.
Right.
He has
yeah,
to
but
do
he
that.
had Shuli for that.
Yes, that's the
But
challenge.
she's the one that is causing the
Exactly.
hurt and such now. So
Which
where
is
does he
why it's
turn? Like,
such
yeah.
a yes. So I'm not going to tell you the answer to that because that is a massive spoiler. So,
Yeah.
Well, that's what hurts is because we know that she's the one that helped him bring that out of
Yeah.
him,
mhm.
Yeah.
and now she's the one that had hurt him, and so how is he gonna
Yep.
be able to pull that back out of him without her?
Right. My concern too was because I know that once they make an oath kind of a thing, is it oath that they make
A
and then they have to
vow.
stand
Yeah.
vow.
Yep.
I had to read it like 3 or 4 times to make sure that he didn't vow to deny her.
You are sharp. You are
I
sharp picking that
really
up.
well
Man,
I
I thought
almost
I blew that past everybody.
No.
'cause I was like, oh
Darn
Christ,
it.
did he vow it? Oh shit! But and then I was like
Yeah.
going
I
back.
thought I got it past you, Ren. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I had to read it again too because I was like, wait a minute, did he say that he wasn't going to? And so I was like, okay, there's an out.
Yeah.
That's what I was like. Oh, please, God, please don't let me go back and see that word. Please, I
Yeah.
see that word.
That's
So
really funny.
I get it. I mean, I do. And I think that's why I just love them so much because I get that she's sort of like his punching bag in a way. Like she carries all this weight of every single person that, and
Yes.
isn't that true though? Like with
Yes.
us,
Yeah.
like in a relationship,
Yeah.
do you know? Like we
Yes.
carry it with us to the next.
Yes.
Do you know? Unless we deal with it, it carries, and that person carries, and
Yes.
that yeah. So I just think that's amazing the way that the stories unfold in that way. I just feel so bad though.
It's so funny that you say that because I'll tell you from my perspective, the super interesting thing to watch as an author is the different responses and reactions that readers have to the same story, right?
Right.
So from the beginning of Beast, there's been a lot of conflict. There's just always something going on that's hard for the
Mm.
for the characters that you love the most. That's the whole idea. But what's fascinating to me is I'm trying to depict real relationship issues and real human nature and psychological and emotional and spiritual issues,
Mm.
but in an environment that's very unrealistic.
Right.
So the fun thing about that is you can put a lot of truth in and it's not confrontational because people aren't reading themselves into it because it's such an alien environment. And so
Mm.
I can get away with a lot, which is fun. But
Yeah.
what's really interesting to me, there's been different times in Reth and Elia's story, and now I suspect it will happen with Laren, where different readers have gotten really agitated about the way one
Mm.
of the characters is dealing with something. And because I've done counseling and stuff before, I'm sitting there. This sounds terrible, and I don't mean it like a bad thing. What I mean is, I read some of these comments and I go, oh, so you've had some of these experiences.
Uh-huh.
Because
I
the
get you.
way they're reacting to what's happened is to somebody who either has been in that boat themselves and they're like, he is so right, and they're just like
Mhm.
all in on that was the right way to deal with it, and da, 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 because they've experienced it and they resonate with the feelings, or they're on the flip side where it was done to them, or they did it, they're seeing
Mhm.
the mitigating factors,
Right.
and they're all in emotionally on no, and it's just I never imagined that reading reader comments would be, armchair psychoanalysis, but it actually is, because
Absolutely.
you can see from people's response to certain situations how they think and how they feel because
Mhm.
they perceive different things than other
Other
readers do. And
experiences.
you can have 5 different readers in the same chapter and 3 of them are like, "Woohoo!" And one's like way over here by themselves, and the other person's like, "But what about?" It's really interesting to see how people respond to the
Yeah.
emotions of it. So I get a little sort of, um, like I say, I'm not sitting there like judging people because I don't know people, and I'm really careful. I know people don't know me either, but it is really fascinating to me. I've always found human nature fascinating. I've
Mhm.
always found interactions. That's why I love reality television. It's not because, you know, the dating game is so fascinating. It's because people's emotional responses and psychological responses to situations is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So that's why I love doing that with my characters too. Like I'm taking stuff that I know is real and putting it into characters, and then readers are like, but," and sometimes I want to go talk to 15 people, and you will find out that this is real. Like I'm not pulling
Mhm.
this out of my ass. This happens in
Yep.
real life.
Yep.
But I can't because I don't want to make it more than it is. But yeah, sometimes I'm
Well,
just like, honey, you need to go talk to a few people and understand that this
well,
happens in real life.
that's what makes your book so special is because they are realistically human,
Yep.
Well, I
and
hope so.
that's why we get so emotionally invested in it as well, is because we understand these people or we
Can
reflect
relate.
them.
Mhm.
We can relate them. Yeah. So
That's good to
at least
hear.
that's for
Thank
me.
you. That's the
Okay,
goal.
That's
Jessica.
why I cry so much.
We do.
We have a crier. No. Um,
You do. I am.
oh,
That's true.
so I don't know if this crosses with any of your questions, Janelle. Um, I'll go through these really fast so I can get them done. One
Okay.
is Shaw possessed? Um, and I want to
Was.
say yes and no. I have in the way the voices work in my mind. Um, on a human level, yes, it's like a possession or what we would sort of commonly call a possession at times. But I have a firm belief that a lot of what happens in a person's life supernaturally has to do with what they invite and what they
Mm.
open themselves to, whether they understand what they're doing or not. That's the problem, right? So Shaw takes an action thinking it's going to have one effect and it actually has a different one. But now he's stuck with it. And what he's stuck with is these things having access to him when they choose to.
Mm.
So because they are not uh, omnipresent, a voice is a being, if you want to call it that, um, like a demon. So it can only be in one place at a time, but when it's there, it's got a lot of power and a lot of stuff it can do. So what he's dealing with is that he has, without meaning to, invited these things into his life. And so when they choose to, they can take control of him or at least influence him in a way that he doesn't feel like he can resist. So there's
Mhm.
there's varieties of levels of their interaction with him. Sometimes it's just like somebody talking to him where he hears the information and has to decide what to do with it. And other times they're physically sort of controlling him and what he does and what he says. And you got to see that in action when he pulled Callie away from the
Mm.
portal because
Yeah.
they were in and out when that was going on. Um,
So that was Shaw then?
yes. So if
Okay.
you read the scenes from when Shaw pulls her away from the portal until she leaves, you'll see different sort of shifts in the ways that he's talking and the things that he's saying, and also the way that she perceives like his body language and stuff. And so that's how you can kind of parse out what's going on, how much influence they're having in the moment. Because some of that time she's talking to Shaw, and some of that time she's not. She just doesn't know it.
Mhm.
So if
Mm.
you go back to those chapters, that's the clearest that you would have seen it so far.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
That's
oh, sorry. Did you guys have any questions about that?
In regards to the voices, I do a little bit because in the one of the last chapters when Gary was interrogating him, and he
Mm-hmm.
was saying that the voices um, were with the wolves. Um,
Mm-hmm.
does that mean that Lucan was possessed in a way? Because he was the one that took Elliot back, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
So Lucan, and I think I'd have to go back to my notes. I think it was two other wolves. I can't remember. All went over to get Elia and bring her back.
Right.
And there's a scene where Laren talks about the fact that the two other wolves that went with him disappeared after that, and
Yeah.
he thinks that his father killed them, but that was never actually, like, his father never said that. He never had direct evidence, but that was Laren's natural conclusion, was
Okay.
that these two wolves went with his dad, and then his dad killed them to keep it all quiet. Um, and he
But it
talked,
sounds like that's not true.
well, it is and it isn't. So, yes, Lucan was under the influence of the voices, which is why his behavior degenerated over time and his
Yeah, I figured.
motives changed. Lucan already had some imbalances anyway, so not everything. Like if you read the early story, and Reth talks about Lucan a little bit here and there, and I think it's still in there. There's one point where he says that Lucan didn't used to be so bad.
Yeah.
There's a combination of factors going on there. Lucan had a lot of jealousy and a lot of ambition that were driving him, which is what made him go to the human world when it was his option to bring a human to the right. He went out of his ambition and he went out of his jealousy, trying to sort of thwart that process. But his ambition and his jealousy took him in a direction again that he didn't realize what he was inviting in. So the voices recognized in Lucan somebody that they
Right.
could use,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
he had the motivations to do wrong things
Right.
basically for his own gain, and they played on that, and so he gave himself to that, and then everything went haywire after that. But not everything that the voices did with Lucan. This is why I'm hesitant to say Shaw or Lucan or anybody else is possessed, because everybody's, or I shouldn't say everybody's, a lot of people's perception of that is that it's a person who's completely, like, exorcist level, just
Hmm.
incapable of functioning, insane, serial killer. And that's not what's going on. The voices are destructive and deceptive, and they will steal, kill, and destroy as much as they can. But they do it where they use people, is a better way to put it. And so with Lucan, they were using him to try to get further deeper into the tribe, get more people. And so they'll give him some of the stuff that he wants. Like he benefited, if you want to look at it that way. When they said, do this and we'll give you this, they did that. They gave him the stuff. They led him to the things that he wanted. Like on a black and white level, they fulfilled what they said they would do. But what he didn't bargain for was what the impacts of that would be, and what they would also do on top of that by being in his life, and then, other people around him. So, um, it is, in my mind, a kind of fictional um, license of demonic activity, in terms of the ways that I see evil at work in the world. It's often manipulative and it's often deceptive, but it also draws people with temptation. And people don't go, I want such and such dead. Most of the time, what people say is, I wish I had that, or I wish I could live that way, or I wish I could be that way. And they'll get drawn into things that they think are going to give them that. And they might achieve those things, but they end up internally destroyed by it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to depict with the voices is that,
Mm.
yeah, sure, they'll give you, hey, we can deliver, the human that's going to mess up your king. No problem at all. Let us do that for you. Let us make you the most powerful alpha outside of the king himself. We can do that for you. But guess what? We're also going to, torment you and mess you up and end up
Mhm.
almost, getting you and your daughter killed. And you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you don't understand
Like
what
this
you're
is the price.
inviting in to get what you
Right.
Like
want.
this.
What was
Like
that?
this is the. Like this is the price you have to pay for what you get.
Yeah. Well, they're
Yeah.
deceptive because, when Lucan's talking to the voices and they see his ambition and they see his jealousy, they're not sitting there going, well, we'll give you what you want as long as you let us make you insane. What they're doing is
Right.
they're just telling him the good side. Hey, come with us. We have power. We have knowledge. We can give you what you want. We can make you the most powerful. We can make your son king. That's what you want, right? You want your son king. You want your daughter queen. We can make that happen for you. And they're playing it. I mean, you saw it with Gari. They identify the inner desire and the inner fear, and they play into that.
Mhm.
So they did that with Lucan. They identified what would motivate him and what would drive him and what promises he needed to give them what they wanted. But they didn't tell him what the impacts of that would be. And while they might say to him, yes, we can deliver the right female into your hands, we can identify her for you, they didn't tell him that Reth would choose her over his own daughter. you know, he didn't
Right.
go into the right expecting He went into the right expecting that Elia would die and Lucine would become queen, and this was the beginning of the lupine um, climb to the top.
Rain.
The whole goal of bringing Elia in the first place was to demoralize Reth and to knock him down a peg, and then bring Lucine in, who could over time dominate him, so that even though he was king, it would be, you know, in title, not in truth. Because Lucan didn't care about titles and whatever. Lucan cared about power. And he cared
Right.
about it, ironically, for his kids. Like, he wanted his kids to have it. And that was his, like, legacy, right? He's
Mhm.
been the alpha wolf most of his life. If he can bring his kids and they can go higher than he did, like, he's happy. So, yeah, that's why Laren really, when he goes back and kind of thinks about the interactions he had with his dad and stuff, when all this started happening with Reth, and he's observing that Laren sometimes took himself out of the conversation. He would send Laren in to do something and wouldn't be there himself and stuff like that. There were times that the wolves didn't show up for security council, for elders meetings, stuff like that. It's all
Mhm.
because Lucan was like pulling strings in the background rather than wanting it. It wasn't his ambition was not for him to become king. It was for his kids to have that power, and that
Right.
he got value out of sort of making that happen.
Well, okay, I have a question. So if Lucan went through the portal and uh was talking to the voices, and then later on after he got back, told Laren, hey, do not go through the portal. Like he
Hmm.
was like really adamant. If he kind of sided with the voices anyways, why would he so adamant that Laren didn't go in if he's already siding with the voices?
So this is the same reason that Shaw pulled Callie back, and it's because when the voices aren't in control, these men are seeing what they've done to them and they don't want it to happen to people that they care about. So Shaw went and said to Callie, I'm not going to let you do this. And I can't remember how he stated it in the end, but he basically said, I'm not going to let them do to you what they did to me. And it's because he actually
Yeah.
genuinely cared about his niece. Like, he as a person is not evil. Um, he is a little bit messed up, but he wasn't evil. Um, and it was his own kind of temptation and fascination. He had this idolization of the anima, and he thought if he could get over there, he just wanted it so badly. Like I can see Shaw in my mind and the stuff that he did and the stuff that he researched and the fascination that he had. He really put the anima up on a pedestal and he thought being over there would be essentially heaven,
Mm.
right? And so he did what he could, thinking he could get over there, um, and found out on the way that that wasn't going to happen. And so when he is in his right mind and can see the destruction that has happened in his own life as a result of this, he does not want it to happen to somebody that he cares about. Lucan was exactly the same. The voices' influence over him grew over time. So they gave him what he wanted and they kind of seeped in darker and darker and darker and more control over time, which is what Laren talks about when he's remembering his father kind of going on this downward spiral over the course of a year.
Mm.
So Lucan had times during that time where he was just himself and he could see himself objectively and understood that the voices had messed with him, when he wasn't under their influence, so to speak. And it was one of those times that he warned Lucine and Laren never to go through. The thing that I find fascinating about that conversation, I can't remember. Did he end up saying nobody should ever go through, or did he just say not our family? I can't remember how I ended up.
I don't
I don't
I don't
remember.
remember.
remember
I can't
either if he
remember the
just
structure
said
I put around it in the end because it
family.
kind of served the story differently depending how he did it.
Well, it
Um,
was like Laren was remembering the conversation, so it was just like I don't remember how it was structured. Just that you told him not to go in. So
Mm.
I'm pretty sure where I ended up landing with that was that he told Laren and Lucine never to do it, to send other people through if it absolutely had to be done. I'm pretty sure
That
that was how we ended up
yeah,
doing
that
it,
Yeah,
sounds
I think,
which
yeah,
like
is
it.
because
which is rich, right? Because what Lucan
Mm.
is recognizing is that these things are so destructive and so evil, like don't get caught up. But if you have to, make sure it's somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's the whole thing, right? People who lack, well, not lack. What Lucan was demonstrating there was he prioritizes certain people, right? So his kids were the most important people in the world to him. So he was going to do
Mm.
anything he could to protect them. But if that meant somebody else's kids got destroyed, well, he could live with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so it lacks some empathy and it lacks some self-awareness. It's very selfish, narcissistic,
I,
and that's also kind of where Shaw was at a little bit as well. Like he cared about Callie and he didn't want her to go through it, but he didn't stop Gary.
Mm.
So um, yeah, it's just when people get influenced by evil, they can't see the change that happens in themselves. This is my opinion. And so that's what I was trying to show is that they get this kind of skewed vision of the world.
I have a two-part question.
Go ahead.
Um, First part of it is from recent. One is from way back. The the prophecy. They said they quoted the prophecy, the new about the about Eli and Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the big prophecy. So and all that. And does that necessarily mean that he dies?
Who, Gary?
Yeah. Does that necessarily mean that he dies?
No. So
Okay.
I'm gonna pull it up because
I'm trying to remember how it's quoted.
I want to remember because there was stuff that I put in there that's kind of, and I don't want to. Sometimes I don't always remember all of the details
Uh,
that I. Now I've got to remember which um, chapter it was in. Um,
Yeah.
ooh.
Are you talking about the death part? In
So,
death?
yeah, there's a part in the prophecy. I think it was Shaw was quoting it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I'm
they were
hearing
quoting it
beeping. Is that me or is that one of you guys?
going to. I'm outside actually, and my thing's inside, so I don't know how to change it without it.
Oh, no, you're
Oh,
fine. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't I'm using a
Oh,
different headset than usual. Um,
I'm sorry.
no, don't worry about it. I'm trying to remember where I had that. This is the weird way that my um, brain works. I can envision it on the page, but I can't remember which page it was. Um, hang on. Chelly, I've muted you just for a minute, just while I'm looking up this answer, and then I'll unmute you so you can tell me the second half of your question when I find it. Does anybody remember one of the phrases from the prophecies? And I can search it up. It doesn't, I can tell you point blank that the prophecy does not mean Gari will die. Not necessarily. It does talk about death, and there is implications of that, but it's not what that prophecy was saying. It wasn't saying you're gonna die, dude. Um,
does that
shoot.
mean somebody's going to?
Well, um,
Eh,
this is why I want to read it because I
Nikki.
want it because I can't remember all the different stuff I put in it, and I don't want to tell you something that's not actually there because he doesn't have the whole picture yet. Um, he's got most of the
I'm,
picture. Gari has most of the picture now. Like if Gari learned nothing else from this point forward that you're at in the story, um, he would be okay in terms of he would know what to do.
I
Um,
have it.
you have it? Do you know what chapter it's
Yeah.
in?
482.
Okay. How did I? Is it called Truth and Shadows?
Yes.
How did I miss that? I thought I went back that far. Okay, here we go. Okay.
Love, the love must sustain to keep anima hearts safe. Love in silence, love in distance, love in death.
Yes.
And then
And isn't
love.
there also? I'm just looking. Oh
There's
no, no, that's it.
there's a
Okay.
there's more, but
So here it is. Love must sustain to keep anima hearts safe. Love in silence, love in distance, love in death. Love must sustain to keep anima hearts true. Love in silence, love in distance, love in death. Only purest love will bring forth the saving grace. Love must sustain to bring anima hearts to truth. Love in silence, love in distance, love in death. Love is the hope of the anima. Humility will be their savior. Pride and the anima will die. I'm not going to tell you. Oh, there's a. So above that, two human females, each a true mate, one to guard, to hold the gate, one to guide, to deny hate. Male hearts pure, love true, male hearts pure love. Love is the hope of the anima, humility will be their guide. Strength unseen will hedge them in safety until the worlds collide. And then it goes into the love must sustain. So what Gari's being shown there through that whole thing is a picture of who's involved and what their jobs are. So he's been given this purpose by the creator, right? He read the winds, he got a prophecy, he understands what his job is, and he understands a lot about the picture of who needs to be involved and what they need to do. Like he could see it. I had to put it into words for him when he got it because you have to read it, but it came to him as mostly imagery and understanding, like you would in a dream when you're seeing something, but you understand more about it than is actually kind of being communicated. That was how it was for him. So he got this whole picture of what's going to happen, or rather, what they don't want to happen and how to avoid it. The prophecy that you're reading there is the prophecy that was given hundreds of years earlier to a different Anima who was reading the winds and who understood some things that Gari hasn't got yet, but that are less important because some of them have already happened. So the first
Mm.
section of that prophecy, um, most of it, not all, most of it is talking about what you're reading. The second half is about what those people need to do about it. There's a little bit more to it than that, but I don't want to give you spoilers. So just so you know, if you want to kind of mess around with it and see what you think, that first half that starts two human females, that whole section, 90% of that has already occurred, but it's giving some context to what has already occurred and what they need to do. And then the second half is this is what's going to draw you all through this because this is how you need to be thinking about it when it
Mhm.
happens. Um, so this is the fun part of having the two books going at the same time. Part of what you're seeing there is happening in Queen. So
Mm.
part of what's going on with this prophecy won't be shown until you read Queen.
Aha.
Part of it.
Well, I
So,
was figuring.
was there any other questions? Janelle, did you have questions? Oh, no, I'm
I
sorry.
did.
Chelly, poor Chelly. I didn't unmute her. I'm so sorry, Chelly. You're unmuted now.
Okay. The second question, the second part of the question goes all the way back to the bears when when Wraith gave them the land,
Mm-hmm.
told them to hibernate.
Yep.
Um, he was talking about the portals and the evil. I think I'm really not sure how it was worded.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about, though,
Yes.
don't you?
Yep. What was your question?
About the disformed we now know are the protectors, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can go through via their blood.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered what the bears saw so bad about it that they gave that warning that was never brought to light.
So you're gonna get in the not too distant future, I think it will be in October. I can't remember. No, we don't get into it in September yet, but we're getting close to it. In
Okay.
October, you're going to see all of that come to fruition. Like Reth's gonna be talking to the bears again. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about in our October, like in the course of the story. Um,
Right.
so that I'm not going to answer for you properly because it will be a spoiler.
Got you.
But when that happens, there will be a number
Mm-hmm.
of events occurring around that will make it clear the difference between how the bears see this versus how Gari sees it. But
Okay.
also, the one thing I will say, and this was actually one of the other questions that I had, the blood of the disformed making them protectors is true across the board, but there's a necessity of character with it. So
Right.
not just any disformed can be a protector. They're all equipped to do it, but they
Uh-huh.
have to be like
Mentally.
they have to. So Gari, as you can see, Gari is a good man and he has a lot of integrity, and even he has struggled with the
Right.
voices, right?
Mhm.
So there
Yes.
has to be, in addition to being equipped with being the right type of anima, because this is what the disformed are. They are the anima that were designed to do this. But just like in every
Uh-huh.
other tribe and in every other sort of skill set that the anima has, some people are better at it than others, right? Or better
Right.
equipped. Some of them are better off not to. And
Mhm.
Yes.
so it's everybody, and I realized, well, it's because Gari hasn't been able to learn it yet. I think Gari does know it, but it hasn't come up yet in conversation. Um, just because Gari can do it doesn't mean every other disformed can do it. Because, and you'll see this when you see Gari and Elia go through together, pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to what happens in the course of that. That'll give you better insight into this whole thing.
Okay.
So, but just let me say that just because an anima is disformed does not mean that you necessarily want them taking you through the traverse. Because if they don't
Doesn't
have the
mean they're.
character to back it up, they're still going to fail.
It's like they have to have the gift of the protector.
Well, they've all got it. What it is it's like I don't know if you guys have ever seen what I'm trying to paint here is, people have wasted talent. Do you know what I mean? Like people have the capability to do
Mm-hmm.
something, but just because they've got the capability to do it doesn't mean they do it well,
Right.
or doesn't mean that
Yes.
they appreciate what they can do.
Mhm.
And with this particular thing, if you go into the traverse with the wrong intention or the wrong motivation or just not defended, you can still
Mm-hmm.
get tripped up. So, yes, the disformed are really important and they're going to become more important. But just because you are disformed doesn't mean you just go, just slice my wrist and we're good. It's not like
Right.
that. So
Right.
the thing is Gari takes this stuff seriously because of the type of anima he is, because of the type of man he is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's had to go into it blind, right? He's not had anybody to
Right.
teach him. He's not had any instruction. He just had to go give it a shot and see what happened. Um,
Right.
but yeah, part of the confusion, I think, because one of the questions I got was why doesn't Gari just then turn around and go back to Cali? Or why is he not assuming that he can? Because, he's in a place where they're saying goodbye and they don't know how long it's going to be that they're going to be apart. In part, that's because of the prophecy that he's just been given, means that he has stuff he
Mm-hmm.
has to do in anima, which means he has to
Mm-hmm.
be there to do it. But secondarily, he is fully aware that just because he walked through doesn't mean that it's easy peasy and we should just do this all the time. And I'm going to share with you, ladies, that my husband's currently standing in front of me in his underwear, flexing his muscles. He just ran out. I can't believe
I'm
you're
like,
talking to
I'm sure he's really glad you shared.
this. He does this to me sometimes when I'm on the phone. I just embarrassed him. That's funny. He likes to he goes, "I don't know how you can keep your hands off this." That's what he says. And he makes like he's
Oh,
being
I
silly,
love it.
but he does look good, but he's being silly. He's just
Right.
trying to he like snuck around to make sure I didn't have video going and then he's like flexing and stuff. Quickest way to
That's
get him out the
funny.
door is just tell people that he's doing it.
Aw.
He's gone now. Um
Aw.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah, so just be aware it's not as simple as it sounds right now. Plus, you brought up a really good point, Shelley, the bears. Everyone seems to have forgotten the agreement that Reth made with the bears. Um, and the fact
Mm-hmm.
that, Gary's said more than once and said to Elia, Reth's the one who has to let me come back. Because she was like, well, I'll just release you from the blood vow and you can come back. And he's like, well, first of all, you can't.
No.
Reth has to because he's the
Right.
one that Gary made the vow to. But then
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
secondarily, Reth now has, which Gary doesn't know, Reth now has an agreement with the bears. And Reth told the
Mm-hmm.
bears, or rather, the bears insisted that beyond getting Elia back, nobody else was to go through the traverse ever.
Right.
And Reth made that agreement. So,
Yes.
that's a challenge that Gari doesn't yet know exists. When
That was
Gari's
an
talking
ever
about it,
thing.
what's that?
That was an ever thing. I thought it was just during the war.
Well, I think maybe I've written it wrong. I believe that Gower told Reth that no one should ever go through it, and Reth vowed that other than sending Elia through while the bears were there, they wouldn't. Anyone. It was only to go get Elia. Um, but then there was discussion about the bears staying in the region, and that was sort
Yes.
of remained to be seen about whether or not that was going to happen.
Mm.
Um, so I'm confident that while the bears are around, there's an agreement that no one will go through the traverse. But there's going to be other issues that come up when Reth talks to Gower again, that complicate all of this. So I'm just saying, everybody's like, I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of people are in the comments like, "Why is Gary so upset? He can just go through and then he can go back. He can just walk back through with his protector blood." And I'm like, "It's not that
No,
simple. It's
right.
really not that simple." So yeah, there's elements that Gari doesn't even know about, but even Gari himself knows that he can't go back until or unless Reth releases him from the blood vow because he vowed to protect Elia.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
secondarily, he's a cohort, and the cohort is supposed to be a lifetime position. He's not
Right.
supposed to abandon her, in that, although that can be worked around. But then secondarily, you have this prophecy that Gari's now been given that requires him to be in anima, at least for a time. And then on top of that, which he doesn't know about, you've got Rest's agreement with the bears. So it's a big mishmash and fruit salad of obstacles.
Just felt like it.
Yeah. Let's just throw another one in there. No, yeah. Some of that, yeah, you'll see. You'll see.
Well,
Drama.
see,
Yeah.
that
So
fascinates me. I'm
dramatic.
sorry. I mean, how you just work it all in, then work it all out. You are some kind of special writer. I just
Oh,
have to say that
Mhm.
for you.
thank you. I have very good tools. I've been pointed at some extremely talented people who know how to analyze plot and characters and stuff, and I use the tools. I read their books and use the tools because I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow is a plotting day for me. I'll sit down and I'll plot Queen and Beast all day because you have to. Because if you don't know where you're
Right.
going and you get off track and then you've got no way to get back to where you need to be. So I have to
Right.
be planned sort of, I don't know, probably a month's
You've
worth of writing ahead.
you've got to plan
Detailed
to mess
is
with our heads.
Yeah.
your outline for your books. Like
What's
how
that?
how much detail do you put into your outline for your books?
A lot. Like I plotted. So what I'll do when I'm struggling is I'll do what usually starts out as like bullet points or single sentence points where I'm just like it's just like this the single milestone of the plot point, right? But
Mhm.
then I'll start going into sort of chapter by chapter single plot point and then you sort of fill those out into what conversation's going to get covered and so it starts really skeletal and then it branches out. So, like on Friday, I think it was, I knew what my plot point was, but I hadn't expanded it. And I think I ended up writing like 3,500 words of outline to write 8,000 words of content. But that
Wow.
8,000 words
Wow.
came really fast because I had outlined in such detail that I could just fly through it. So I ended up writing like 8 chapters in 4 hours or something like that.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I always tell writers, I don't know if any of you guys are writers, but I always tell writers, don't fool yourself. It feels like when you put a lot of time into outlining and plotting, it feels like it's dead time, but it's not. And if anything, writing for web novel has proven it even more. Even if I put 6 or 8 hours into plotting every, I don't know, 3 weeks, I still get more written more easily and more quickly, including that 6 or 8 hours, than I do on the times when I'm outlining as I go. Kind of figuring out the next scene and then writing it and then figuring out the next one and writing it, sort of writing it to figure it out. A lot of writers I know, they call themselves pantsers and they say, oh, writing an outline is just boring because then you know where the story's going and you've got no inspiration. And I'm like, nope. I have yet to read somebody who writes by the seat of their pants and doesn't end up going off on like rabbit trails or filler or whatever
Mm-hmm.
because it's unavoidable. You hit days where you don't feel like writing, you're not inspired, you're not excited. If you can't push through that, you just end up writing junk. And even if you only
Mhm.
write junk a few times a month, readers get sick of reading that. So my goal, and I know I don't always get there, but my goal is to make sure that every single scene either makes the story move forward or develops the character. So something is moving ahead, something is changing in every scene. But that's not always possible, but that's our goal. No filler.
Mm. Oh yeah, there was this one book I read, and it was like they're cooking and
Yeah.
all kinds of nonsense,
Yeah.
and oh, we gotta get the kids a bath, and a whole like 3 chapters. I'm like, oh my god.
Mhm. That happens enough on Web Novel that we did a webinar, I don't know, a couple months ago. The editors will come in and they'll do like webinars on different themes for the writers to kind of help them improve or whatever. And they did an entire webinar on plotting. And the first thing they said was following your character through a day is not plotting. And they were like, so if you're talking about your character getting up out of bed, making their breakfast, walking to check their calendar, and talking to a friend on the phone, and then having lunch, that's not plotting. And readers don't want to read it, and they'll stop reading your book. So I guess
Mhm.
it happens quite a bit, and it's because some writers they just get stuck, and they've got 4 hours, and they have to get a chapter out, and so they just they just put something down. And when you've got no plot plan and you don't know where you're going, you end up just filling it with the character did this and then they did that and then they did this and then they did that. So yeah, that's a hazard of serialization because there's word count requirements to hit certain events that help you promote your book. There are some writers that are literally just getting words on a page, like they're not even trying. And there's other writers that are good writers or at least good storytellers, but sometimes they're just having a bad day, and so they just get something out. Um, yeah, I try not to do that, but
Thank you.
it's not. It is hard work. So I understand. Like I don't begrudge people a filler chapter here and there, but I try not to do it because it makes me. I even as things are, there are times when I'm like, oh, are they gonna like this? Like, are they gonna? Sometimes I have to have the characters have long conversations or sort of planning things so the readers understand what's going on. But it's necessary, but it's not fun. And I'm like, oh, they're gonna be so bored that day, but I don't know what else to do. So it happens to all of us.
I had one final question.
Jump on in.
Will we get any more of Callie's perspective?
Yes. In fact, I think
Okay.
you've got her pretty soon. I'm just going to have a look. I just wrote her recently. I just want to see if you're going to see her before the end of the month. I mean, I know you're going to see her before the end of the month. I mean, I want to see if you're going to see her soon.
So we'll still get the human side for her perspective,
Yeah,
even
you're not
after
going to
Jared.
see as much of it because bringing Elia and Reth back together means that obviously the story primarily focuses on them. But what would you say? How do I say this without spoiling? Gari and Elia's stories are intrinsically linked. So you can't tell Gari's story without having Elia involved, and you can't tell Gari's story without having Callie involved. So they're both, she is going to stick around, but you just won't see as much from her because her side of the story isn't going to be developing as much in the short term. She's going to be a lot of the same. So until she's kind of more active in what's going on, it'll just be kind of check-ins here and there. She's going to learn some stuff. She's going to have some conversations. She's going to have some feelings. Like at different times, you kind of get to check in with her and find out where she's at and find out what's going on the human side. But things are moving more slowly on that side than they are in anima. So we're primarily in anima.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. I'm going to have to get off here in a second, but I would love to quickly get you guys thoughts or this is a moment when I don't care doesn't help. So I'm gonna ask a question, and I'm gonna guess that most of you are gonna go, "Well, I don't care, I'll do either." But if you have even the slightest preference, and it doesn't matter if it's a different preference to other people, I'd really love to hear it. What I'm battling with right now is, first of all, what the next book should be, whether it should be a beast book or whether it should be something else. Does anybody have a significant preference to see a third beast book when um, King is finished or close to finished? Do you prefer to see yet another beast book, or do you prefer to see something else?
Hmm.
You're allowed
With that
you're
being
allowed to have
said,
different opinions. I want to know your
okay,
individual opinions, not what you think other people want.
okay. With that being said, I'll go first. Let everybody else think a minute.
You go, Chelly.
That that is considerate of your feelings. Are you over writing these books, or would you consider doing another?
I'm not over
Because
writing
I
these
would love
books.
another. I
You
would love
would?
another if you got it in you. But if you
Oh,
don't, then yeah.
I have probably another two or three beast books in me, but I'm not sure the
Ah,
audience does, at least not in this format. I
right.
have one specifically planned and two more that I know what I would do with them if I wrote them. So, yeah, in theory, I have three more beast books, but
I'm all for Beast.
Yeah, I love the
Give me
Beast
another.
books.
Yeah.
My opinion is like, with my example is Prince. You know, you were going along, you wanted it to work, and it didn't, and then you went back to Beast. And so my concern is that your growth has come from the Beast world,
mm-hmm.
and I'm concerned that if you go off into another book, that something similar might happen. And so I'm worried about that part, investing so much in another line, another area, whenever Beast is like your growth, it's your baby. So I don't know.
Yes, that is the hard question because Queen did really well when it first started, and now it's kind of petering off. But I also expect that when Beast finishes, that Queen will jump up because I think a lot of the readers will go to it then. But not
Mhm.
everybody will. Some people will be all beasted out. And this is the really hard balance to find. Do I put a third book into the series? Um, when I don't, I, so here's the disadvantage as an author when you have one audience as your foundation, you can't split that audience too fine, right? I'm not expecting all of you to run privilege reading on three books at the same time. I know some of you are already doing that, and it absolutely blows my mind. But if I was to
Mhm.
add like a third beast book now, at some point it just becomes unaffordable. So the difficulty I have is yes, another beast book potentially brings the audience over, so potentially it has a foundation that grows faster, but also potentially people get through beast, they go into queen, they start to get sick of the world, they want something else, and here I am still hammering away at a third or fourth book. So
Okay.
But you
and I
have.
can't know the future. So I'm not suggesting
Right.
that we can determine that, but I'm just saying the reason I'm asking the question is because there's balancing factors on both sides. Um, so
When you
if I
start.
do another beast book, it probably starts later than if I do something else from the standpoint of not wanting to split that audience too thin.
But you'll be totally finished with Beast whenever you
Mm-hmm.
start the third one.
Yes, that's
I
what I
think
would.
I would have to be or very close to it.
Okay.
Yes.
And the way that Beast is going now, it's already going longer than I thought it would. And and I'm looking at so I'm just starting the third volume And I thought that the third volume would probably be quite short, but it's actually looking like it's probably going to be almost as long as the other two, which means I'm probably not finishing it till November, December,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
which is holiday time. Not a great time to be starting a new book.
Right.
At least not on web novel. It can be a good thing for other things, but web novel is not a great time. Very up and down time. Um, so yeah, so
And maybe
I'm
just concentrate on um Prince and Queen until after the holidays. I don't
There
know.
you go.
That would be good. That would be a good
That would
option.
probably be your best bet instead of trying, like you said, to introduce something that
mhm.
around the holidays is kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
If you're ending right then, give yourself like till January or something when people start picking up again. Anyways,
It will
Right.
depend how much of the Beast audience goes over to Queen.
Right. Right.
If most of the audience moves over, that'd be great because the
Hmm.
income will sustain, you
The
know.
difference.
But
Yeah.
generally, what you have to do is give a book about 3 months before it's really earning anything,
Hmm.
and at least. Sometimes more, and
Right.
that can be tricky with ending a book and readers then leaving you and going to other authors and then not coming back to see what else you've done. One of the downsides of web novel is that they very much build loyalty to books, not to authors. And I'm pretty confident I know why, but what that
Mhm.
means is it's actually hard for me to get readers to move over. So you guys aren't hard because you're in touch with me. So you talk to me and I
Right.
can tell you, hey, go take a look at this one. But
Yep.
most
Could it
readers, they're just reading a book. They're not talking to me. They're not in comments. You know, they're not reading author notes. They're just reading a story. And at the end of
could
that,
it
unless they proactively go look and see what else I've done,
Right.
it's very hard. I can't put links in books to other books. I can't even do it in the comments. I cannot put live links anywhere on web novel. And because you
I
have
see that
to,
a lot.
yeah, because you have to
And
intentionally search. If people spell things wrong, my name is easy to spell wrong. Um,
mm,
if
yeah.
they don't know the title of the new book, or they get the title wrong and they end up finding somebody else's book and then they're like, this is nothing like the other one. So there's just
Can you
real.
put can you put like your Discord link in like everywhere, and maybe that will bring more people here, and then they'll see all your different books. I don't know how that works.
They can't
Not
well, I can't
only
put a live link to anything, so I can give
Right.
you the information, which I already do in my
Yeah.
author notes.
Yeah.
I give
Mhm.
people information about how to join Discord, but a lot of people are resistant to that, which I understand.
Right.
Um, and because I can't do live links to other books, although I'm not the only author asking Web Novel to do this, so we're hoping that the developers are working on it.
Yeah, that's kind of a
Because that
shame
would
they
be the
don't.
ideal, would be to be
Yeah.
able to go, hey, here, try this, and they can just click it and be
Right.
immediately taken to the new book and read the synopsis and start reading it and see if they like it.
Yep.
Because ironically, a single click is an obstacle for people, let
Yeah.
alone having to type something.
Right.
It's insane how
Hmm.
few
And
people
Discord is not easy. Discord's not
know.
easy to find it and do with the
And
code, and even with that.
And my audience is primarily Western and often older. By older, I mean over 30.
Hmm.
And so Discord is not something that they have already really come in contact with a lot.
Right.
So it's not like Instagram. I can put my Instagram link on and people follow me there, but Instagram's not a place like this, right?
Right.
So
Right.
no.
it has limited, connection. And again, you can't do live links off Instagram either. So
Right.
it has
Yeah, I
limited
think
value.
web novel needs to definitely put where you can put a link in. That would be something that wouldn't it benefit them as much
Well,
as
you would
you.
think
Mhm.
so, but I think
Right.
part of it is because these books are so long and they're so ongoing, and because authors are free, and this is my other question that I'm bringing to you guys. What other authors who are having strong books like Beast are telling me is that I need to get on Patreon and be writing on Patreon, be giving people an opportunity to get a book from me in a
Hmm.
different platform where it's there's more freedom in how you deliver it. Um,
Right.
Right.
because not because web novel is bad. I'm a big advocate for web novel. They are the best publisher that I've dealt with by a margin. They have their issues, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
in terms of the terms and getting paid and all of that stuff, I've had a far better run with them than I have with any other publisher, including a big traditional publisher. Um, but so what these other authors are saying is, hey, on Patreon you can decide how you're going to do it. You can do daily updates just like you do on web novel. You can do weekly where they get a big chunk. You can do monthly where they get an ebook. You can do all of the above. Like they're like you've got
A
freedom.
Hmm.
monthly ebook? Yes.
Well, so when I say that, what it would be the equivalent of a web novel month delivered as a single document or a single
But
digital book.
Yeah.
Um,
I love it.
so you can read it all at once. But like I say, there's limits. The getting people to switch platforms, especially if you want them on both, which is what I'm effectively saying. Hey, come over to Patreon, read a different book that I'm writing over there, and support me over there. But by the way, don't stop don't stop buying my web novel. Do you know what I mean? Like it's hard. Again,
Yeah.
you don't want to split the audience too much. But I do see I've been doing a lot of research into Patreon. I've been playing with what I would put in the tiers, and I can do merchandise and behind the scenes stuff. And there's we could have a lot of fun on there. I have no doubt about it. At least it would be fun for me. But the delivery of books is a little trickier, but it definitely can be done, and it can be done with more freedom than with web novel. But it's also limited to people being willing to go over there,
Hmm.
and not everybody is. So, and I can understand that you come over to Patreon to support me, all you're finding is me. You come onto web novel, you've got literally tens of thousands of books to search and look at, and so I get it. But that was my other question for you guys. If I was to do a book on Patreon, if I were to do a beast book over there, I would have to change the name of the world, change the name of the characters, and give it some unique element so that it was no longer technically a part of the beast series on web novel, because contractually I cannot write that world
Hmm.
What
anywhere
if it
else.
was just that the same world, but they called it something else because it's a different region, so they had different words for
Yes,
it?
that was, but see that then, and that was my idea. That was what I was going to do. Um, at least if I took it off of web novel. But then the downside to that is it can't be any of the side characters that I had planned to give their own books,
Mm.
because I can't use them.
Right.
So I do have a fun idea for that exact thing. That was something that I had sort of like, I know what I can do. But then people have to trust me that they want to read it, because it's not going to be a spin-off. It's not going to be taking a character you already know and putting them in their own book. It's going to be, an
But
entirely new set.
that could be a good thing
I've
though,
got a
because we'll still have the others on web novel, and it's just kind of having a different book. I wouldn't mind being in both places at all. Absolutely would not mind. I would
it
definitely
doesn't
follow you over there. Absolutely, without a doubt.
Cool.
doesn't
Yeah.
bother me either.
Yeah, I'd
I'd go.
follow you too.
I'm there.
Well, the
I'm not a
downside of
big
asking you
tomboy.
guys is you guys are my best ones. No, I'm joking. I shouldn't say that. What I mean is, you guys are my fiercest supporters.
Yeah.
No, but I was curious how you guys would feel about it, because if you don't want to do it, nobody's going to want to do it. You guys are my strongest support.
My
Oh,
So,
I would do
question,
it. I would do it absolutely.
my
And I
question
think it
would be,
would be
how
refreshing
do you,
too to have a different story. It would be like you doing another book, but in a not better environment, but a different one. Like you said, you have more control over it, which I'm all for you having more control.
thank you.
Not that web novel is I have my things with them. But
hmm
but I would wholeheartedly support you in a place where you have full control. I think that's
Thank you.
what should happen.
Well, thank you, Irish. What were you going to ask, Shelley?
Um, I was going to apologize for butting in.
No, you're
Didn't mean
fine.
Oh
to.
no, you're fine.
And basically the same thing as she said. I'm not a big follower, but if you went, we would go. My only question would be, how would you get the people on web novel to switch over to your other book
I
if
am
you can't promote
allowed
it on
to
web novel?
promote my other platforms and media on web novels. So
Mhm.
I just like I do with other stuff at the end of chapters, I can say, "Hey, I'm on Patreon now. Come on over. I've got another book over there." Like that's fully
Okay, good,
allowed right now. I don't know if they're going to stay
good.
that way, but
Mhm.
right now that's fully allowed. But again, I can't even get people to look up a second book on web novel half the time. I don't.
Mm,
I'm really uncertain
What
how it's
can
going to
we
go
do?
bringing it into Patreon. I really don't
What
know.
can we do to get people
That's so
to
weird. I
what?
just think that's weird because I've looked every book up and I've read them.
Yeah.
Well, not
mm-hmm.
Well, like I say,
Me
you
too.
guys are my fiercest supporters. There are other readers who are not in my Discord who've done the same thing. They've gone and they've looked me up and they've read my other books and they've said,
Mhm.
"I'll read anything you write," and I love them for it. But
Right.
that's not
Mm-hmm.
every reader. That's every author has like a core of fans that are diehards that are just like, "I'll
Right.
go anywhere you go." And
Right.
and we need you. Like we
Mhm.
need
Right.
you. But what
It
that
took
doesn't
me
do, that gives you like a foundation, right? That doesn't give you a viable
growth.
income.
Right.
Usually that base is big enough to get something started. It's not usually big enough to sustain an author.
Mhm.
So you need to pull other people in as well. But you guys are the best people to tell me because you are the fiercest supporters. You like what I do. So identifying what appeals to you the most and
Mhm.
and aiming for that is the best plan, right? So,
Right.
yeah. I do see how it would be hard to bring over people from one platform to the other, though.
yeah. Well, and the other thing is I know a lot of people, and this has happened with Queen. I know a lot of people, they look at it and they go, "Oh yeah, I'll go read that," but they just don't do it in the moment. And then it falls off your radar. And then
Mhm.
there's this weird thing, because I used to work in marketing. There's this weird thing that happens when your brain has dismissed something for whatever reason. It becomes less urgent to you. Even if it was
Mhm.
something you were super excited about at the time, you lose this emotional sort of motivation. And if you lose it for too long, you lose it completely. So
Right.
some people
Yeah.
will never move to Queen, not because they wouldn't have enjoyed it, but just because for whatever reason they didn't go right at the beginning and their brain's kind of gone, okay, not that one. And now
Mhm.
they're not even really interested in it anymore. But we'll see. It'll
Oh,
be interesting to see what happens next month, whether Queen ends up getting into the finals for Spirity or not. That'll be a big impact on what I should or shouldn't do following that, right?
Right.
Because if Queen is making a decent income, it's making money now, but it's not making an income.
Right.
Beast does.
So when
If
Beast
Queen
is
was
over,
making an
you'll still
income, then I'm
have.
free to let Beast be completed and move to something else. If Queen's
Right.
not, then I need to keep Beast going for a little while to try to build up the audience in other books.
Right.
Well, I mean, like, I guess if you kept Beast going, like if you just found a way just to keep it going, it's kind of like a long TV show or like a long comic book series. You just find more facets to explore in that, and as as long as you're not ending that book and starting another book, people can still click on that same link on web novel and still continuing Beast. I can see how that would help keep your readers. But it's just like, how long could you, or could you incorporate the side stories into the main book?
That's effectively what I did with Gari and Laren.
Mhm.
So obviously it can be done, But there's a risk.
Mhm.
There's two risks there. One is that people come to Beast for Reth and Elia, and as soon as they are no longer central to it, you will lose readers, which is fine. I mean, you're going to lose readers if you complete the book too. So not the end of the
Mm.
world. But the other side of it is, I always vowed that I would not finish this book because it died, because I tried to keep it going when it shouldn't be going anymore. There
Right.
does need to
Right.
be an end to the story.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yes, there are side characters that I could follow in the same, under the same title. But then you get into this place where readers come in and they go, 1,000 chapters? I can't read 1,000 chapters. And they don't touch it. So I've seen authors who've done both of those things. I've seen authors who've completed a book, tried to start up a new one, and just not been able to get the audience to shift over. And I've also seen authors who've just done the side stories later after the main stories are finished, but in the same title. And now they have readers who refuse to start the book because even though they would potentially like it, it's too much. They see it as too much of a financial commitment or too much of a time commitment. I'm not going to get started in something that I can't finish because it just
Mm.
gets too big. And I've already had one or two readers comment and be like, "How many chapters does this book have?" Like, what's going on? Because they're obviously new to web novel, and
See,
I'm
I'm the one that will always look for the most because I'm a binge reader, but I'm not like I I get excited for when I know your stories and such have hundreds of them. Like, oh, binge reading, yay!
yeah. Well,
Mhm.
and see, and that's the other thing. This is why everything has its flip side, right? Because I read
Yeah,
some readers who are like, "I won't even start a book unless it has at least 200 chapters."
yeah,
And then I've got
Mhm.
other readers who are like, "I will not start a book if it has more than 400 chapters." And I'm like, "So
hmm
which
Well,
of these is more?"
right,
Like,
yeah,
which of these
I've
audiences
been
is bigger? Because I'll go where I should go. I just need to
right,
know. It's impossible. You can't know. So that's why I always said I'm gonna keep writing this book until it's no long like until it's done. And then I'm gonna
right,
let it be done because I
Mhm.
don't want to exploit it. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
And in fairness, it has ended up being way longer than I thought. If you had asked
mm
me back in like May or June, I would have thought I was finishing now. I had
mm
planned that September I would have finished Beast and started a new one, and I'm not. I'm starting a new volume on it.
yeah,
So
Mhm.
apparently, even though I know the story, apparently I cannot accurately judge how long it takes to tell it. So who
mm,
knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't finish till January, and then it doesn't matter because it's a new year and I can bring people over. Like, who knows?
right, right,
Um,
That's what you should shoot for. It's January.
what's that?
You should shoot for January.
Well, no, like I say, I don't want to drag it out. So,
But
mm
um,
to us, it's not like a drag.
well, it's not now, but this is where it becomes a very
Plotting.
fine line. There is such thing as plot weariness, and
Oh,
people
right.
being like, I've already had a couple comments recently where people are like, I just want to see them happy. I'm like, well, they don't get to
right,
be happy until we get to the end.
right,
Right.
yeah.
You-
Gotta
it's
be
not fun to read anymore if all they're doing is going, "Yay, I love you."
yeah,
It stops being interesting. So,
When I first when I first started web novel, I was green as a gourd when it come to it. And it took me months before I realized I could go to the artist and see what else they were writing.
I know web novel do not promote authors. They promote
they
books.
yeah.
And now I'm into so many different little things. I like you said, I don't want to start one unless it's got 200 chapters. Well, I look at least for 100, and then you've got new authors that are bringing stuff forth, and the books that I'm reading, so to speak, I'm at the end of.
Mm,
Mm,
I'm caught up. I have nothing to read.
mhm.
And I have started these little books that go to 40 chapters, and that's it. They don't even end right.
yeah,
They're not even exactly. They're like, we'll just leave it off in the wind, and you're just like, I need an
Hello?
ending.
yeah.
Closure. We
That's the
need
Yeah.
biggest.
as readers
Yeah,
we need closure.
Yeah.
I've read some of the dumbest books on web novel. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It
My
unfortunately with serialization, if people are trying to do it to make a living, there does come a point where you have to put your time into what makes money. So some
Right.
of the
Right.
authors that are serious about it, they drop books because the book's just not making money. But a lot of authors, and I mean thousands of authors on web novel, come on thinking they're going to have a ton of fun, thinking it's always going to be easy and fun, and I'm just going to be a writer. And they get, like you say, 40, 50, 60, even 150 chapters in, and it's hard work. And they
Mm,
go, ugh, and they're not getting anything out of it anymore, so they just stop. It's
yeah.
like it's the most common issue on web novel is dropping books. And the disadvantage is that web novel will not um, delete books because that could be solved by
Yeah.
deleting any book that hasn't been updated, say in 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you got to give a window if an author has some people have health issues or family stuff happens. Like there are times when
Mm-hmm.
you just can't be writing every day, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they could solve it by saying, okay, if this book hasn't been updated by X and X date, it's going to be deleted until you update it again. And then readers wouldn't be finding those dropped books all the
Yes.
time because they leave a bad
Right.
taste in your mouth,
Oh,
They do.
absolutely.
Yeah,
especially if
they
they are
really
And
do.
interesting.
Oh my gosh,
and
yeah.
Yeah.
also go in your prologue or whatever it is you call it, whatever it is it's called. I'm sorry. Um, and put. Can you not promote your author's page in that?
Well, you
Hey,
can
go over
tell
and
people that
like
it's
my
there.
author's
Mm.
page and check out my other books
Hmm. You can
because I
tell, but
didn't
you
even
would
know
be
that was there.
surprised. I mean, I am realizing how blessed I am that the audience that I have attracted is predominantly women who are real adults
Mhm.
because real adults think for themselves
Yeah.
and go, what else can I find or what else can I do? Kids
Right.
are just like, "Oh, I'm bored." They just done, gone,
Yeah.
bye. They leave
Mm.
horrible comments for authors because they get ticked
Right.
off about something that happened in the plot or you know what I mean, or they pirate stuff or whatever. Like I'm just really, really blessed because my audience is more mature and it gives some balance to it. A
Mhm.
lot of authors are putting up with some really awful stuff because their
Mm.
readers are young and don't understand the impact that they're having. Um,
That's a shame.
so yeah, I can put notes in that say, like I have two books on web novel that have two volumes, but their third volumes are not written. They're just outlined because the books never made enough money
Yep.
to make it worth the
Mhm.
hours. I put auxiliary chapters in that explain that in detail. And I put notes at the beginning of the book that say, read the auxiliary chapter, understand the content that's in here. I don't want you to start it. I don't want you to start paying for
Mhm.
content until you know what's here. I cannot
Mm-hmm.
tell you the number of people that read those books, get to the end, and go, what? Why didn't you read the third one? And I'm like, I did everything I could.
Yeah.
There's notes
No.
throughout the story. There's notes when you're about to start the paid chapters. Like, there's literally
Yeah.
Wow.
nothing more that I could do to give you a heads up that this is the
Mhm.
problem with this content. And yet they haven't made the one click or the one read to understand
Yep.
it. So, you can't, I just know from experience, you can't assume that just because you write something, people are reading it. You can't assume that just because you put that note in there that people go, oh, okay.
No, people don't read
They
that
really
kind of
don't.
stuff.
They're
They
like,
don't.
"Oh, that's from the author, I don't care." They just jump to the story and move on.
Exactly.
Uh,
I'm
So,
guilty of that.
I wanna tell you all now, I'll put this with a precursor, a disclaimer, I mean. Um, I know this author, and I know her well, and she's wonderful, and I started reading this book. I only got a few chapters in because I didn't have a lot of time, but I was surprised how hooked I was by it. Have any of you read His Majesty's Devious Sins?
Yep.
Is it
No.
so who said yes? Sorry, I missed that.
I did.
Did you did you read it all the way through?
I'm looking right now at where I let me see where I am. Oh, okay.
Anyway, I'll tell you if there's another author that you want to support on web novels, sincerely is it. She's a wonderful human being.
Yes, I read the whole thing.
So would you recommend it to my audience? I
Yeah.
loved the opening and I want to read it and I've put it in my library. It's literally only the second book on web novel that I've done that with. But I have
Mhm.
so little time to read right now. I don't like to recommend things without knowing what's in them.
Right.
And she's a lot younger than me and has a very
Mhm.
different life, so I have no clue about her content or her R18 levels or whatever. Like I just don't know. But I
She's
was
got, oh yeah, they're adult, mature.
I knew they were
Um,
adult. I didn't know
I
how well they were adult.
I have read her other ones. Her. I don't know.
Her.
Okay, sorry. I one that I absolutely loved was The Rise of, and I'm not even going to try to say that name. It's Xueyue is the name.
Oh, I think it's
Good luck with that.
ZU or Zuyu or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Zhuyu.
That one I loved, and it has 543 chapters, and I went through it in 2 days.
Oh, nice.
But um, she's got
Yeah.
one now going
Did you
on.
sleep?
Yeah, no, I don't sleep as it is. That's why I read so much. 'Cause
That's why we don't sleep.
I don't. No, I don't sleep, so I read. So, but
Right.
not to like promote someone else, but just
No, do.
because you mentioned it, she's got two that are new, that are ongoing, I should say. Dear Immortal Tyrant. Now that one's good, but I absolutely want to stab the male lead in the head every fucking chapter. And I'm
I'll
not
let her
even kidding.
know.
But I love it. But I fucking hate him. But I love it. It's one of those where I try not to. In fact, I think I even go in there and see me purely frustrated. I fucking hate this guy or whatever I say. Um, but it's so good. But I get so mad. But that's how you know it's like it's just certain people have those
Yep.
certain writing styles where they just I don't know if they hate men or they hate women. I
I
say
Hilarious.
that
don't
in
think
light.
she
I
hates
do.
either, but she
No, I say
definitely
that in
has
light.
some trust issues.
Yeah. uh, but the Dear Immortal Tyrant, that's really good. It's just be prepared that he's a twat. But the the one that you mentioned was really good. Like I said, I had a good time reading that one.
What
Good.
And
was
there's
the name
only
of it again?
oh
It's
shit.
called His
Yep.
Majesty's Devious Sins. It's a
Mhm.
vampire book. Now, I am not a
Oh,
vampire book reader,
I
but
am.
I loved, I don't know why, the
yes.
hero in it. I guess he's called the
Mm.
hero. I don't know.
Mhm.
But the male lead,
Anti-hero?
when I just read the first few chapters, I was
Yeah.
very, very drawn to
That was
him
me.
and
Mhm.
his whole way of carrying himself and everything. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is definitely the kind of male lead that I like to read.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Like I say, she's a very different person than me, but we get along like a house on fire. And so I don't know what her content is like. I have to put the disclaimer in. I'm not telling you to go there and you're going to read a beast book. Um, it's probably going to be darker. It's probably going to be raunchier.
It is for
But
sure.
I adore her,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed those opening chapters. Like that's literally the second book on web novel that had I been in a bookstore, I would have bought it when
Mhm.
I picked it up. And it's not perfect, but her English
Right.
is
Right.
good. Her language is good.
Mhm.
And yeah, so
I was the same with that. It was like the first couple chapters, and I went, "Oh God, this is not bad." And then you kind of get sucked into that. But see, that's what I do. I go and I've just figured this out how the hell to get to the author's page is to click in the now this is probably not the only way, but I click in the comments and then at the top I click on the author's name and then I click on the author's name again. I'm sure there's an easier way. But that pulls up their profile and that's
yes.
how I see all the books.
Yep.
And that's how I found the other ones that I liked. Um, and I know a lot of people don't do that, and that's what we were talking about. It's a shame because it's a couple clicks,
Right.
and you get to find all these great books. But I wish there was another way to do it.
Yeah.
Web novel is very, very frustrating.
Yes.
I'm still quite new to it. And to be honest with you, after probably the first 2 weeks, I almost never went back to it. Because it was so user unfriendly
Yes.
for me. It is horribly unfriendly.
Yeah.
The navigation and the system itself and there's no explanation whatsoever.
I know. Trust me, I know.
There's like no, and that's
I've
my only frustration because there should be more links. There should be a little bit more uh, user friendly just
Yeah.
for you guys alone. I'm saying that you're not getting the things that you should be getting out of it. Like the couple things that you had said before, is there like a suggestion, like an author suggestion
We
somewhere that you guys can put things out?
So I'm very blessed that Beast has made it far enough that I'm considered a top author now, which puts
woohoo.
me
Good.
into a chat directly with staff.
Oh, that's
And
Woo.
fantastic.
so we get to request things in there. There's about 100 of us in there, I think.
Hmm.
We get to request things. We get help, when readers have problems and service can't work it out. We get to give suggestions. Like they are listening, and sometimes
Hmm.
they do things fast. Like sometimes there's a problem, and we're like,
Right.
hey, there's this problem with this thing that you're doing. And they go, whoa,
Hmm.
and they run in and fix it.
Right.
Other times when it's stuff like this, where we're asking them to change something that's like part
Hmm.
of the development, it takes a lot longer, and it generally takes a bunch of authors pestering them about it because
Yeah.
they are a very small team. For the amount of stuff that they are doing, they are a
Mhm.
very small team. And so, yes, we did have a conversation with them earlier in the summer, a month or so back, saying, hey, we really want to be able to link our own books in our own books.
Mhm.
Can we
Mhm.
find a way to make a live link, even if it's only within web novel, that we're
Sure.
allowed to do it? And they said it was a good idea, and they said that they would discuss it, and nothing's happened. So it's
Mm.
possible that they have that, like they have a list, right, of things that they're
Right.
doing.
Oh, I'm
But the
sure.
things that they prioritize are the things that make money, which is fair enough.
Mhm.
They're a business. Stuff like this, it benefits authors more than it benefits web novel.
Which they would
So
not have web novel without the authors.
well, but
Mm.
authors wouldn't be authors without web novel. It really is a
Mhm.
Sure, it's a
very
given. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it really is, and I have to say they're the third publisher that I've worked with, and they're the best so far. Not
Mhm.
perfect by any means, and I agree with you that there's a lot of unfriendly interactivity with the
Mm.
site and stuff. But in terms of how they, you know, the opportunities that they give, how quickly they pay, how responsive they are when you know talk to them. I know that my experience is not the same as everybody's because I have a successful book.
Mhm.
So there are authors that would tell you differently, but I have yet to hear of an author not getting paid. And that, believe it or not, is really uncommon in publishing.
Right.
Wow.
So,
As long as
if
you all are
nothing
getting
else,
the
they pay
benefit,
their people and they pay them fast.
and that's good. As long as you guys are getting the benefit that you deserve. I mean, we
Mhm.
can sort of muddle around and find our way, but I mean, without you guys, we wouldn't be here.
Well,
I would not have
Yeah.
stayed
the thing that
if
I
it
feel
were not for
concerned
you.
about with web novel is that, and I put it in the Discord just a week or so back. I feel a little bit concerned about the direction they're taking with this gifting and the super
Mm.
gifts and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I feel like that's exploiting
Yep.
readers, and that authors are exploiting it to the detriment of readers.
Yeah.
Um, and that
It's
makes me
almost
uneasy. But I also
Mhm.
understand that authors couldn't do that if authors were being upfront. So,
Right.
it doesn't matter if web novel gives you the opportunity to gift. The authors have got to be sitting there, getting sneaky about how they're going to do it to fool readers. That's on the
Exactly.
authors.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, like I say, it's not
it's almost
perfect, but they have given, well, certainly my story is that they've given me both more opportunity and more support than I've had from any other publisher.
Mhm.
And they pay me fast and and
good.
and quickly every month. No publisher
Good.
that I know pays that often. Literally none. So I don't know how or why they're able to do that, but they do. Their systems work really fast.
That's good.
Um,
That's really good.
so my only desire to go to Patreon is because you could get either more free, you could either be charged less for the same content because you don't have a platform to pick up and you don't have a
Mhm.
split with the publisher. So you can either be
Right.
charged less for the same content and or you can get more for your money because
Mhm.
I can provide things to you that I can't provide through web novel. So that's the literally the only reason that I'm considering adding Patreon to this is to be able to do some things that I can't do right now. And also, I feel bad when I see people giving big gifts, and I know that a good chunk of that is not going to me.
Mm.
It feels off to me. I don't have an issue with the royalties because I get a better cut from Web Novel than I do from any other publisher I've worked with. So I don't have
Mhm.
an issue with the cut they're taking from royalties, but gifts, when readers think that they are giving something to the author to support them
Mm-hmm.
and 70% of it is going elsewhere.
Mm.
That does not sit
Oh,
well with me. But the
No.
reason it's
No.
that much, I'll tell you this. Apparently, both Google and Apple, and this is true on every app you use, take 30% of all earnings to do the maintenance on the and the delivery. So what
Hmm.
that's a
web
lot.
that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So Web Novel
That's
splits everything else with us. But already your pie is a lot smaller when the platform is taking that much.
Right.
Um, but then on top of that, the oh shoot, what was I going to tell you? Oh, the perception that that web novel have created, which I'm amazed. I am amazed that they have developed a readership. I was stunned when I learned that they did a gifting system. I'm like, why would
Mhm.
any reader give money when they don't have to? They're not getting anything from it. And they're like to support the author. And I'm like, but they're already supporting me by buying the chapters.
Mhm.
So I just didn't, I thought, well, that's just stupid. That's just pie in the sky stuff. Well, boy, was I wrong. So people's generosity absolutely astounds me. But when
mm-hmm.
they're sitting there saying, I'm giving you this very generous gift because I want to support you and I want you to do well and I want you to gain. And I'm thinking, mm,
Well,
I could be
I
gaining
got
a
a
lot
question.
more for a lot less. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I see a benefit for
Patreon
both
would do that.
sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but on the flip side, your audience shrinks dramatically when you get off a major platform. So you go from web novel
Mm-hmm.
to Patreon, sure, per reader, you can charge less and they can get the same content and you can get the same or more money. But now you've
Mhm.
got a lot smaller number of readers. So it's the
I've been seeing
endless,
on
endless
Facebook.
questions.
Right.
I have been seeing on Facebook where they're just like I found web novel. There's a site called Dream, and then there's
Yep,
another site that I didn't download.
yep.
But
There's actually several.
that may be a good way to.
Those other
Um,
platforms are not as successful as Web Novel. They don't
Mhm.
have, I know authors that are on them, and I have yet
hmm
to meet an author who's saying that any of them is doing better for them than Web Novel. There are some authors, a lot of these platforms specialize differently. So there's a lot of books that just would never make it on Web Novel because the audience they've established is looking for specific things. So like the
Mhm.
Right.
first two books that I put on web novel should not have been put on web novel. They're not good for the web novel audience. They would do really well maybe on Royal Road or I don't know about Dream. I haven't looked into it, but there's several of these editors that keep approaching me trying to get me to come onto these other sites. And
hmm
the authors that I've talked to who've done it have said the readership is way lower. Even though they make promises about this income that they're going to give you, they
Mhm.
don't, you have much higher, even higher requirements to reach it. Um, Even though they promise more money than Web Novel does in terms of the foundation of what they'll pay you if you meet word count, requirements, the word counts are higher. Like I have yet to meet an author who's like, oh, it's so much easier over here. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
splitting themselves across these platforms and they're all staying with web novel. So
Right.
to me, it's like, well, that's my test, my test audience.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's
Um,
funny. That's how I found web novel was on Facebook. I happened to see something popped up, and it was like a little excerpt of someone's story, and I started to
Mm-hmm.
read it, and I got hooked and
yeah.
came on to
That's
web novel.
exactly how I happened to
And
come
then I
across
wanted
it
to,
as well.
yeah, then I wanted to cry because I didn't understand a fucking thing on it. Sorry, but
Right.
like
Right.
I
Well,
Exactly.
was
tell
like,
you what we'll do. What maybe next month or at some point, what I'll do when you guys are free is I'll have you come in and talk to me about the ways that you wish web novel could be improved, and then
mm,
I will put it online and I'll give it to the staff and I'll say, listen to this. This is your readers telling you. This is your
yeah,
paying readers
oh
telling
yeah,
you the struggles that they have with
hmm,
the site because they genuine they look for feedback, like they want to know how to do it
right,
better. They can't always deliver because they're a small team, but they
right,
try. They really do try. I am impressed with how often I'll put something out that's about one reader. This reader is having this issue with this thing, and the staff
hmm,
members responding to me at 10 o'clock at night for them. You know, they're
wow,
in
Wow.
Hong Kong or Singapore or
hmm,
wherever, and they're responding, going, "I'll check it out," and then they're coming back 20 minutes later with an answer. You know, like that's
wow,
Cool.
insane to me. And it's not like it's a big thing. It's a single
hmm,
reader and they want to fix
Wow.
the problem. So sometimes they really impress me. And
yeah.
then
Like
other
I
times
think
they
it's
don't.
great. Right, yeah, yeah. Like I'm so glad I found the platform just, because the stories, but
Uh-huh.
I almost feel bad for people who are starting it. That privilege, I can't even.
Uh-uh.
Every month that starts,
I
it does my
know.
head in. And
It
you'd
does
think
my head
somehow,
in too.
you'd think I'd understand
No.
for how many months I've been on there, but for some reason, one or two of my books will do
Mm-hmm.
something I can't even describe. I don't even know what they're doing. But
It's
like
glitching. Yeah.
yeah, and so I actually, it's a sin, but I stopped reading that book because it's been the same book for 3 months,
Oh, really?
Mm.
Oh, that's too
and
bad.
I've said something to support. I've asked help. She just kept repeating the same thing back over to me. I'm like, you're not understanding what I'm saying.
No, and that's,
It was
yeah.
screenshots and whatever. So I just thought, I'm just gonna save myself, and I'm not gonna read this book anymore. And that's a sin because that's going to affect the author.
Well,
But
if
I,
you want to, you could send me a DM of the issue that you've hit, and I could give
mhm.
them your account and the book title, and they'll fix it. They'll figure it out.
And
But
that,
it
yeah,
is
that's what I did with Pop
often, I'll
Up.
be really honest with you, the quickest way to fix anything, 9 times out of 10, remove the book from your
Yeah.
library and then re-add it. If that doesn't
Hmm.
work, if you know your password and email to get into the account, uninstall the app and reinstall it. Nine
Yep.
times
I've
out of
done that
10, that'll
too.
fix any problem you're having.
Hmm.
It is
Yeah.
a glitch. It is glitchy. It does get hung up, especially around privilege time at the beginning of the month.
I'm sure. So many
But
people.
then even when it doesn't, if especially if you're a privileged reader, they
Hmm.
want to help. So support, unfortunately, often I think there's a language barrier or something. I
Yeah.
think a lot of
Yeah.
stuff goes wrong there. But they tell us when we talk to the
Hmm.
staff, they're like, have them go to support first because if it's an easy fix, they'll fix it. And which is
Right.
fair
Right.
enough. I get that.
Oh yeah.
But the thing that I don't like is if support then are rude or
Hmm.
cause a problem, as this has happened this morning with one of my other readers,
Oh no.
then they're coming into it with an even worse feeling than they had
Yeah.
before. So like
Exactly.
I'm going to talk to the staff this evening and it's going to be like, "Hey, you tell me to send them to support, but this is how support is dealing with this and that is not okay."
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Because we are the ones, we're the authors are the ones. We don't have any control over this, and we're the
Right.
ones who have to go face to face with readers and be like, really sorry, because of course we don't
Right.
want you to have those problems either. To be fair,
Right.
web novel don't want you to have those problems,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's just, they're dealing on the thousands scale and we're dealing on one. But
faster. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, look, I'm really sorry. My husband is texting me now because
Oh,
I told
bless.
him I would get off an hour ago.
That's
Um,
oh,
Okay.
this
he's
was so
like,
much fun.
I know. It's every month. I'm like, I'll just go an hour and a half today, and then it
Uh-huh.
gets a half hour longer every time. So I'm really naughty. Thank you, ladies, for being here.
Hey, I
Thank you
love your new
for
profile
Well,
picture. It's so
thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you for taking the
And
time too.
well,
thank you.
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I got my copy, so thank you very much.
Oh, yay! It arrived.
Yay!
Yay!
It arrived.
Yay!
Oh,
Okay.
excited.
I
I'm
will talk
holding it right
to
now.
y'all later.
Yes.
And thank you for showing up.
Well, thank you.
You're
Thank
very
you. Thank you.
welcome.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Ben.
Bye.
Bye.